championship has been captured by the Indiana Pacers.
Alex Pillow wins the 109th Indianapolis 500.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Good morning. Another day without Kevin Bone, who is off hopefully having a good time celebrating the summer in whatever form it is taking. Good morning, James Boyd. How you doing today?
Doing good. Back at it. Let's do it.
What happened yesterday? Everything was all good. Caitlin Clark's coming back. The Fever are playing at home. They're against an expansion team, a pretty good expansion team. And they start off, they get a 9-point lead, and then it all just went away, and they just got housed yesterday. What happened?
Yeah, that was one of the worst games I've seen from any team in the WNBA this season. And I believe they shot just over 30%, which is really hard to do at any level of the sport. It was just bad basketball. And I thought Caitlin looked a little out of rhythm, and I thought the entire team looked out of rhythm, to be honest. The only player that played well, in my opinion, was Michaela Timpson, the rookie out of Florida State. But other than that, it was just bad all around. And we'll get into all that this morning here on the show.
You know, it's a really interesting team, this Fever team. There's so much potential, and we can see the talent, and we can see when they're playing really well how things go. And now they're sitting there a game under 500 at 9-10. They've now lost 2 games to the team that they are chasing in the standings right now. Both teams were 9-9 when this day started yesterday. And they have these wild swings. A lot of 500 teams, you know, you lose a few close games, you win a few close games. But it feels like they're just these wild swings for this basketball team. Where's that coming from?
Yeah, that's something we can definitely get into. I mean, that was the question that Stephanie White had to answer after the game, and she was, not too sure of how to sort of fix it or where it is coming from, where it stems from. And so that is a concerning answer from a head coach when she is put on the spot like that, and you're telling us, hey, we are professional coaches. We have to figure this out. But right now, I perhaps don't have that answer. And I thought Lexi Hull was very honest about, why that is an issue. And you certainly will unpack that even more later throughout the show. But I thought she was probably the most honest of all the people who were made available after yesterday's 19-point loss to the Golden State Valkyries.
Yeah, so we had a noontime game yesterday. And other than that, how was the rest of your sports viewing day, sports wondering day? I saw the things we had talked about a little bit yesterday. You put an article up on The Athletic about some of the players for the Indianapolis Colts. But any other things that struck you as the day went along yesterday?
Not really, to be honest. I got a chance to catch up on some Squid Games.
Oh, I thought you were going to say sleep. I was like, yeah!
No. I know you love sleep. But no, I mean, once I checked into that game, I did catch a couple other WNBA games. I see Angel Reese is on the cover of 2K26. She's been playing well as of late, just dropped her signature sneaker with Reebok, and now I'm looking at Nike like, hurry up with the Caitlin Clark signature sneaker because people want that. And I'm sure it would sell out very quickly. You
going to get some?
I am tempted.
You're a sneaker guy.
I am a sneaker guy. I usually will dibble and dabble. I have the Sabrina Ionescu's from a couple years ago, and so I am not opposed to spending more money on sneakers. Never opposed to that.
All right, that's good stuff there. Mark Dykton, how things going in the old Dykton household in this day and age? I guess you're fully into the Cubs these days, right?
No, actually, I haven't watched a single pitch the last 2 games because I've been busy with the kids. Girls had dance class last night, and then we also went to the Brownsburg Library of all places.
Wow.
Because they had a WNBA All-Star Game thing for kids to do like arts and crafts and then like get grab bags. And my daughter, Emma, my middle daughter, she's like, you have to bring this to work. She won a All-Star Game Indy 500 flag.
That's kind of fire.
And she's like, "Can you please
let me show it to everybody?"
She's like, "Can you show that on the show to show that I got it?" She's all excited. She's so excited to go the All-Star Game. She wants to go to the All-Star Game festivities and all that, but she got it. She was
upside down.
She was one of 3 kids to win the award, win the flag. So she's like, "Please bring that to work and show everybody." I'm like, "I will do that." So there you go,
that's
Emma.
pretty good.
Mission accomplished. So she's very excited. I'm like, I don't know where we're gonna put that thing, but it's pretty awesome. So. They had a great time doing all kinds of arts and crafts for the WNBA All-Star Game. Lots of representation for the Fever out there. So a great time had by at the Brownsburg Library by the Dykton household last night.
Wow, gotta love that. Man, I think he had a better day than we had yesterday, as a matter of fact.
It sounds like Emma did. Shout out to Emma.
Yeah, I know. She was very excited.
Somebody in the family has to be a winner.
That's right. It's not me. It ain't me.
Wow. That's crazy.
Shots fired at James Boyd at 7:05 on Thursday.
We did have
When you clip
appearance.
my words later, Mark, I will know why.
Yeah. You have to wonder whether he's going to clip your words.
Hey, man, you never know. I try to get on his good side.
That's why he does everything. Secretly, he feels like he's in control of all of it over there. That's how that goes. We did see Rick Carlisle appearing on a podcast, or at least a clip of it. I guess it's coming out later on, but he was talking about the Pacers losing Miles Turner to the Milwaukee Bucks. Is that the right way to say it? The Pacers lost Miles Turner to the Milwaukee Bucks?
Yeah.
I think that's probably the right way to
Because he
say
left.
it.
I mean, what other way is it to put it? Because you had a chance to pay him and keep him, and you did neither. So he's gone.
We'll hear from Rick a little bit later on, but kind of my theory of the Bucks probably kind of told him, like, this is the offer. Do you want it or not right now?
Yeah, it certainly is. I think it was very revealing from Rick Carlisle, and I appreciate him even just giving some sort of candor to the situation from his perspective. But the main voice I still want to hear from is Miles Turner himself. So hopefully we get some sort of audio, some sort of video before the end of the week, because as much as we hear from, the Pacers side of things, we have not heard from the Bucks' side of things, other than, I believe, just the opening statement or the general statement that John Horst, the Bucks GM, gave to the media in their press release when they officially signed Miles Turner, which was pretty generic. I mean, it was basically copy and paste, insert name here. We're glad to have you, glad to have your family. Welcome to blank city. So other than that, we need to see, I think, some honesty or just some realness from Miles Turner.
Are they going to when is that happening? Have they not announced it yet? It's been a while.
They announced it, but I have no idea when he will actually speak.
He might just be gone on vacation somewhere.
So, at some point, you do have to address your new fan base.
Yeah, you have
hype
to.
them up.
I'm assuming the signature has to be pen to paper at some point.
Oh,
you want that new money.
It's been officially signed.
You have to be in person at some point, and
Yeah, no,
put
his deal has been officially signed. He just
might
needs to
be
talk.
on the other side of the world right now. He might just be on vacation.
Oh no, he signed that deal. He wasn't on vacation too long.
You can sign
now.
a deal from anywhere. You can sign it in bed from Bali.
This is true, but I do believe that he is in America right now.
All right.
I would like them
You
to
get on the case today. That's your assignment today. Get on the case with Miles Turner.
I'd like to sign a contract and be like that dude on Breaking Bad where he just lays on the pile of money at one point. That would be me if I was Miles Turner.
I was going to say, did you continue to watch Breaking Bad? It got kind of spooky there.
Oh, yeah.
With money. So.
What do you mean? Got kind of spooky. It started kind of spooky. That whole thing.
There you go.
That was outstanding. I still say one of the, if you want to use the word spooky, one of the spookiest scenes in TV of all time, just from just looking at the picture, was, I'll just say, the turtle walking across the desert.
Oh, yeah. My daughter loves turtles. I don't know if I'm sure where that's.
No, I think she's probably a ways away from that one right there. I did have a text conversation with a good buddy of mine who's been covering sports in Milwaukee for, 15, 20 years now. His name is Doug Russell, and I just asked him, I said, hey, what's the reaction been to the Turner signing up there from the fan base, right? And he said it's been all positive. With Lillard hurt, John Horst had to do something to try to win now. They're always trying to show Giannis they're serious about winning. Getting Turner was a huge part of it. When the bill comes due in terms of not having 34 anymore, they'll be terrible for a while. They don't have any draft picks until 2074, it feels like. But they still have Giannis. So people are like, okay, well, if it helps us keep Giannis, okay. That seems to be the reaction.
My entire take on this or view on this has been, I feel like, repeated over the last few days. Not to sound like a broken record, but you make that move not for Miles necessarily, but for Giannis. And if you look at it through that lens, I can see why the Bucks were so desperate to do something, anything to make their team better, because you're trying to keep one of the greatest basketball players ever very happy and very in your city, because if he leaves, like any team, you're usually a lot worse off without that all-time great. So I understand it from their perspective, but still, it is quite a desperate swing, and we will certainly have to see how it all plays out here in a couple of months.
Yeah, have you been paying attention to Wimbledon at all? Because they're getting down to the quarterfinals now.
I have not. I did see that.
The quarterfinals or semis? They're down to the semifinals now, I think, coming up on the weekend here.
I saw that Ben Shelton got eliminated.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been like, somebody I've paid attention to.
He gets right up until the big guys with Sinner and Alcaraz and Djokovic, and he just can't quite break through that last little wall. But it's a process. He's young. All the other guys have had to do that too. I mean, we're talking about Sinner Sinner ran into that block for a long time against Djokovic, and now I think he's won 4 in a row against Djokovic. They're ready to play again in the semis. So sometimes it's just you got to get there. You just got to keep knocking on the door, man.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what's going on there. Mark, anything else you want to throw in? I just love the fact that you went. When was the last time you were in a library?
Actually, quite regularly because the
Okay,
girls have
good.
this summer reading program, so they have to get prizes and everything like that for reading books. So, getting like Portillo's cake vouchers. I'm gonna bring those on. More of those, please.
So that's
Culver's
why Mark
ice
is
cream.
reading.
All of a sudden, he
Yeah.
shows up every day now.
Yeah, I'm like I was told there's cake. I'm here.
Is there a Portillo's out in Brownsburg?
There's one in Avon. That's the closest one. But yeah, they've been doing the reading program and getting all that done. So yeah, I was running around all day yesterday doing some gardening and getting rid of weeds and everything like that. So yard maintenance and all that stuff. So good times before the storms rolled in, and then that was it.
That's
It was a
how
wrap.
that goes. Speaking of restaurants, we were wondering about the Frisch's or Azar's Big Boys yesterday.
Uh-huh.
I got a text from someone who said that they have one up in Anderson.
Interesting. I didn't even know there was one in Indiana.
And our good buddy Phil wrote me there's one in Anderson. I said, where? He said, on Broadway across from Pizza King. I should have known. In Anderson, of course, it's across from Pizza King.
Of course. What isn't?
We got to take you up there sometime. I think you'd like that, James.
I might.
A big old huge hamburger. Good stuff there. All right, we got a lot to talk about today. The Indiana Fever, the Pacers, of course, starting to settle down after what was a very busy, I don't know, I was going to say a couple of weeks, but really last 8 months, right?
I was going to say they're ramping up. They have their summer league debut later today.
Yeah, we'll tell you all about that coming up in a minute. In the meantime, hang with us. We got a lot to do today. We got some guests coming up to talk about Colts and NFL today, correct?
Yes, Charles McDonald, my buddy from Yahoo Sports, will hop on with us. Lives in New York, so he can give us some Daniel Jones perspective as well.
Yeah, I thought we'd also tune into Mark and get kind of a vibe check of where do we all collectively think the Colts rank right now? Not just in the AFC South, but in the AFC in general. I told you about all the odds makers the other day. Just didn't like the AFC South at all.
I don't blame them.
I
don't blame them
All
whatsoever.
4 teams sitting there in the bottom third. I think Tennessee was mid, but everybody else is way down in the.
Well, you mean Houston?
Houston, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say Tennessee has to be dead
Sorry.
last.
Tennessee
Houston.
better stink.
Houston. The Houston, yeah. The one team with a proven commodity at quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
All right. More on that coming up next. It's the Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning. Hope you're having a terrific Thursday. It is the first day of Summer League for the Indiana Pacers later on today. They will be in Las Vegas, James Boyd. Their first game comes this afternoon at 2 p.m. against the version of the Cleveland Cavaliers that has traveled out to Las Vegas.
Do we have a false start there, Mark?
Do we have a false start?
So I'm here to pick you guys up.
Man, did I jump on that?
You forgot to turn your mic
Yeah,
on,
you
so
were
like
talking
half
for
of
like
what you
5
just
seconds.
said was not picked up.
I must have hit the wrong button. I apologize. I did hit a button. It must have been the wrong one. So anyway, I was saying, first day for Summer League for the Indiana Pacers today.
Yep, they'll be playing the Cavaliers, I believe.
Yep.
So first look at some of the rookies. We'll see if Cam Jones is available. I know he's dealing with a hamstring injury. But other than that, I'm looking to see Johnny Furphy take another step forward in his second year with the franchise. Anybody
else besides Johnny? You're really kind of looking to see extended minutes. I'm looking to see what they can do with Taylor and Peter. I don't know. I don't expect a lot jumping right into Summer League, but I keep hearing about how this kid just figures out a way to score baskets.
Yeah, after seeing him shoot the ball after Kevin Pritchard's press conference earlier this week, I was like, man, this guy can really, really fill it up. So I'm excited to see him in Summer League. And I think those types of players tend to transition a bit easier because unlike Cam Jones, who probably will do a lot of ball handling and things like that when he plays, Taylor's job is just to do what you've always done, which is knock down shots, and he's one of the best in the country at it last year. So we're hoping it translates to the NBA.
All right, we'll see exactly what happens there. Meanwhile, here at home yesterday, we had a matinee game, a noon game, even earlier than the matinee, and it started off well for the Fever. They got out of the gate quickly, built a 9-point lead, and then they ended up losing by 19. They were down by 20 or more for most of the fourth quarter, and they just couldn't make baskets yesterday, couldn't shoot the basketball.
Yeah, we'll get into this, and I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's personnel. Obviously, Caitlin Clark's been in and out of the lineup. She was back yesterday and did not play well, and they just looked so disoriented and sort of lifeless yesterday. It was pretty bad basketball outside of that first quarter. Only scored 9 points in the second quarter, only scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. And you get 10 minutes a quarter. So to score 9 in the second quarter, some stuff isn't too complicated. You don't win very many WNBA basketball games doing stuff like that. So disappointing loss.
These were the shooting lines for all 5 starters. Kelsey Mitchell yesterday was 3 of 13. Caitlin Clark was 4 of 12. Ari McDonald was 2 of 9. Aaliyah Boston was 2 of 8. Natasha Howard was 1 of 4, and you can see how it goes down the line there. Just nobody had a good day shooting the ball.
No, it was horrible. I mean, that's the only way to put it. And I thought one of the more concerning things after the game was hearing, them say, oh, well, we've had some of these, attention to detail or scouting issues or, those types of things where I'm like, well, why do they keep happening then at this point in the season?
Yeah, I do want to shout out, though, the one player who did look decent yesterday, Michaela Tempson, was 10 points, 6 rebounds in just 20 minutes. She was active, too, as I was watching a game in my office up there.
Yeah, I mean, I believe she had 3 steals as well, 2 blocks. She's coming along very well. She was the only player I would even consider saying they had a good game.
All right, let's check out Major League Baseball and a game that apparently Mark Teichton paid no attention to. The Minnesota Twins beat the Cubs 4-2. You ever notice he doesn't pay attention to the games the Cubs lose?
Maybe I need to watch at least the pitch because then they'll win. I don't know. But, yeah, the games where I'm, sidetracked and I didn't watch, they lose. So, not great because Milwaukee's climbing up on their tail, and then they got a tough series against the Yankees up next.
Cincinnati Reds bounced back against the Marlins. They scored 7 runs, win by a score of 7-2. Washington Nationals over the Cardinals by a count of 8-2, and the Indianapolis Indians won again. They beat the Gwinnett Stripers 3-2. They will play one more time against Gwinnett tonight at 7:05 over at Victory Field. They had a daytime game yesterday too, so they won their daytime game anyway. Got that going on.
Yeah, I mean, 1 for 2 for the Indianapolis-based teams.
We'll take that right there. Anything else you wanted to throw in before we start to move along to other things?
It was an interesting report I saw from my buddy Kaylin Kaler, who used to work for The Athletic. She now works for ESPN, and they reported a story where it came out that the NFL and the NFLPA had worked together to suppress some of the collusion. Basically, the whole point of it was that the NFL, in a nutshell, the theory is that they wanted to suppress guaranteed contracts after Deshaun Watson got his fully guaranteed contract in Cleveland. And when those findings sort of came out that, yeah, we don't really want fully guaranteed contracts, not only were the NFL owners pushing for that, apparently the NFLPA as well had some sort of like handshake agreement with them to not give that information or disseminate that information to the rest of the league. So that is very concerning and very eyebrow raising. I would love to get some current Colts players' thoughts on that.
You'll have an opportunity to in about a week and a half, 2 weeks from now, right?
Yes, sir.
Looking forward to that. I believe they report the 22nd.
Yep, 22nd. I believe the first day of practice is the 23rd. So,
and we will be there
buckle
at
up,
both
folks.
of those. We'll have the morning show out for both of those, so I'll be looking forward to that. Mark, this may be of interest to you and a lot of other folks too. Mixed martial arts legend Randy Couture airlifted to a burn center Tuesday in Kansas City with injuries stemming from a single-car crash at a pro stock racetrack. He's always been into motorcycles, and now he's trying his hand at racing some cars a little bit. They said that the initial hope and belief is that Couture is expected to recover, sources tell ESPN, but first and second degree burns, trauma injuries, and smoke inhalation in the incident. That doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah, I would not wish that on anybody. That sounds awful.
That's what we know in the world of sports to this moment in time. We'll tell you all about everything else in a minute, including the deeper dive. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but a deeper dive into something you wrote on The Athletic about the Colts today. We'll do that next at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Happy Thursday. Hope you're doing well this morning. James Boyd, Jeff Rickard, Mark Dykton today. Kevin Bowen's on vacation. He'll be back next week, and then you all get a treat. I'll be gone for the rest of the month after that. Well, most of the rest of the month. Be back for the last few days of July.
Yeah, he's taking a casual vacation to Europe.
Well, got to take advantage. I got some family over there for a while, so you got to go take advantage and see them while they're there.
Yep, I'm looking at my entire family like, you bunch of losers.
So you want to adopt a third son? I'll happily.
You just went and saw your family.
Yeah, not in Europe.
You want to adopt a third son? I'll happily.
Yeah,
I thought I'd already done that, Mark.
You know what?
I mean,
I'm gonna hit my boy. I'm gonna
yet.
hit my boy Grant up. He gonna set something up for me overseas.
Yeah, that's how that works.
You guys do a Freaky Friday, just swap bodies or something.
There you go.
Something tells me it's going to resemble a lot more of the European vacation than it is going to be all this glitz and glamour.
Look, I know they're over there for camp and educational purposes, but got to live a little bit.
All right. Speaking of living a little bit, you wrote a piece, and we'll get to something bigger in the NFL in a moment here. But I had teased a moment ago that you'd written a terrific piece in The Athletic today about what's the future of some of these players that the Colts have, as is the case every year. There are a lot of decisions that have to be made as the season goes along and you start setting up your team for next year. We know that the wide receiver core this year is going to feature Michael Pittman Jr. It's going to feature Alec Pierce. It's going to feature Josh Downs. It's going to feature A.D. Mitchell. We know we got a brand new rookie tight end. How's this all mixed up? And let's say they all perform well this year. Some decisions. Let's start there.
That is always Jeff's default. Is like everything is great.
Well, we got to start at the possibility. See, that's the thing, though, James. You got to think about possibilities in life before you can go get them.
Man, I'm looking at the reality.
What
with
are the
this
possibilities?
Team.
So, of that group, though, what's likely to be here 2 seasons from now?
That is a hell of a question because I don't even know who the quarterback is going to be or the coach or the GM for that matter. But
your team, everything is going to fall apart sooner or later, right?
I mean, you got to look at what the team has done in recent history, but I don't know. 2 years from now is a long time in sports. So, in theory, the only one who will be under contract.
Let's talk about a year from now, then.
I think that Alec Pierce could be gone because he has performed well. He's not undeserving of a contract extension, but as we talked about, I think we went through this actually player by player yesterday, but to kind of recap, I think that Alec Pierce is someone who has performed well, but you probably don't want to invest money in Michael Pittman Jr. last summer, Alec Pierce again this summer, and then Josh Downs next summer in theory, because if you're looking at, I don't want to call it expendable positions because he is a very good player, but positions that are probably easier to replace than others, I would think that receiver is probably one of them. And so, yeah, I'm not sure that he will get an extension. The only person I would give an extension to this offseason, no questions asked, because it doesn't matter who is the quarterback or who is on the team, is Bernard Ryman. I mean, I feel like he's a lock at left tackle. You got to pay left tackles in the NFL. I mean, there's a big, big difference between having a better than average left tackle versus having a better than average wide receiver, who is what Alec Pierce is. You need to make sure that left tackle is locked down. But the rest of the group, I mean, this is all in flux to me. We could be looking at a totally different, regime when it comes to leadership as well as personnel based off this upcoming season.
How much of their productivity, or in some cases inconsistent productivity, is on them, and how much of it is just on they haven't had the right guy throwing them the football?
Oh, it's the quarterback, 100%. Yeah, I can't put that anything on the receivers. I mean, the only receiver that I could really point to and say a lot of this might have been on you, in my opinion, last year was A.D. Mitchell, because he could never seem to get on the right page with either quarterback, whether it was Richardson or Joe Flacco, who, by the way, is still playing football now in Cleveland. So, to me, I just think that it comes down to what do you get from under center, and yeah, I'm not too optimistic about it. I'll be honest. We got to see.
You bring up Joe Flacco being in Cleveland, and I actually like Joe Flacco, but he looked washed here last year, and I think the only reason he ended up getting a contract in Cleveland is because the last thing they remember is he led him onto that little late season 3 to 4 game run towards the end of the year a couple of years ago, and I think they're trying to say, well, maybe there's some magic there if we have to bring him in for a game or two. Maybe he has to start the season for a game or two if our young guys aren't ready. good for him getting that, but I don't think he's a real difference maker in
I
Cleveland.
don't know what that depth chart of Cleveland Browns quarterback is going to look like. They have like a half dozen people on there.
Well,
I think Shadur Sanders has a decent
Yeah.
chance of starting
I
a
do
game
too.
this upcoming season.
That's what I wonder. I wonder if they start somebody like Flacco for the first week or two and they ease Shadur in there and try to see what he can do. But that's not what we're worried about today. You wrote about A.D. Mitchell. He's got the physical gifts to replace Pierce as a deep threat in the Colts offense, but after struggling mightily during his rookie season, Mitchell will have to take a massive step forward in 2025 to prove he can play in that role. And that's just catching the balls that are thrown to you and making sure you're doing the things you're supposed to do. That's all you can control as a receiver, right?
Yeah, I remember the play he had against the Jets last year. I believe it was like a crosser or something like that. He had a chance to go score a touchdown, and all he had to do was run straight. And he cut back and got tackled at like the 2-yard line. And I'm like, why? Like, why did you overcomplicate this? We had a chance to catch up with him this spring, and he did say that there are times where he has to be a little bit more focused. And he even mentioned, being more professional. Not that he had like some terrible work habits, but just learning what it means to be in the NFL. And so the potential is there. And I think the frustrating part for Colts fans, that's all you ever hear about sometimes with this team. It's like upside, potential, what it could be. What about what is? And I think they want to see more of what it is. And obviously they want to see that be a positive what is instead of a negative what is. And so I think A.D. Mitchell has all the talent in the world. There's no denying that. The guy caught a bunch of big passes in big games in college and in huge games in college. So he's not afraid of the moment. It's just, can you get to that next level? Because that is what is required when you're playing against the best in the world.
Yeah. The other thing we had talked about just during the break, too, there's a story coming out in the National Football League that's kind of wild when it concerns a guy working for the NFLPA and wanting to be a part of a group that could potentially be a minority owner or have an interest in owning an NFL team. And I don't know about you, but that just sounds like a conflict of interest right off the bat, JB.
Yeah, it is certainly a topic that, to me,
it's kind of weird.
Raised my eyebrows a bit. And I have to give credit to the people who reported on this story, those being ESPN, because
Don Van Natta Jr. and Kalen Keller.
Yeah, Kalen Kaler. Yeah,
we talked to her at the Combine, didn't we?
Yeah,
She's
awesome.
been in studio here, too.
Yeah, Kaylin is one of my favorite reporters. I'll fanboy out here a bit because she will always find these really weird stories like this one that are very revealing. And so to kind of recap a little bit, so yesterday ESPN put out a story saying that the NFL and the NFLPA colluded to keep these collusion findings from becoming basically public knowledge or
colluded on collusion?
Yeah, but basically, in theory, the essence of the story is that the NFL, its owners, did not want to give out guaranteed contracts after Deshaun Watson got a fully guaranteed deal to go to Cleveland, which is right now probably the worst contract in NFL history.
Maybe sports history.
Yeah, it's awful. And so the fact that the NFLPA, which is supposed to be working on it's a players association, supposed to work on behalf of the players, suppress that information from the rest of the players it represents, to me, is definitely a red flag. It's kind of head scratching. Like, why wouldn't you want that out there to your player, just so they work with all the best information, especially when they're negotiating contracts? I mean, that's a big part of it, is the guaranteed money part when you're playing such a sport as violent as football. And then today, the same reporters, Don and Kalen, they put out a story saying that the NFL Players Association Executive Director, Lloyd Howell Jr., is working I'm quoting them, as a paid part-time consultant for the Carlisle Group, one of a select group of league-approved private equity firms now seeking minority ownership in NFL franchises, sources told ESPN. So, in essence, your NFLPA leader, executive director, has a stake in NFL ownership. So, if you're, in theory, wanting to become an NFL owner or become a part of a group that owns an NFL team, it would behoove you to suppress guaranteed contracts because it keeps more money in your pocket. So that's a huge red flag, and I would think a huge conflict of interest. And so I am very curious to hear what the representatives from each team around the league who are on the NFLPA panel have to say. I know that Ryan Kelly was the more outspoken NFLPA representative for the Colts last year. Obviously, he's in Minnesota now. So whoever that person is, and I'll have to do some digging to figure out who will take on that role for the Colts, I want to hear from them. I want to hear their thoughts on this because these guys play a very violent game, as we see every Sunday when someone goes down with, typically a pretty significant injury, and you're being told or not being told all the information you need to know to get all the money you can in a very finite career. So that was very interesting to me.
Yeah, and at one point, there's a lawyer for the union that asked Lloyd Howell Jr., the NFLPA executive director, to resign from the private equity firm to avoid even the appearance of the conflict of interest if the firm ends up taking an ownership stake in an NFL franchise. That's according to a source with knowledge of the situation, said Howell declined to step away from Carlisle. Yeah, I hear you, but no, I'm good.
That's why I'm like, the NFLPA, the players, something has to give here, because this is a bad look in the fact that you try to hide the findings. Like you said, collude on the collusion is crazy to me.
We'll keep an eye on that one. It'll be fascinating to watch, and everybody just wants their money. That's what it comes down to. Everybody wants their money and their influence.
Yeah, I would just like to know what I'm working with. If I'm an NFL player, and at the end of the day, as much as we talk about ownership and GMs, it's the players that decide what happens on Sundays and who gives us entertainment that we so value. I mean, a lot of these people would not be living their lives if they didn't have guys going out there and doing wild things to their bodies to go out there and compete. I was watching a video the other day, actually, on Instagram, where it was DeForest Buckner, and he had done basically an ad for this stem cell company in Panama. And he told us a little bit about this, where after he had a high ankle sprain last year and got put on IR, he had to go overseas, basically. And he said the Colts, and he told us his story after Jim Irsay passed. The Colts flew him out there and helped him get the stem cell treatment. And in this video, he's kind of detailing, like, yeah, I went back this summer and got some more treatment on my ankle. But then you know what? I had a knee that was kind of bothering me, so I got a knee there. I got some work done there, and then I had an elbow. Like, he was naming, I'm probably messing up a couple of the body parts, but he named several body parts that he's playing through, and injuries that he's played through. And DeForest Buckner, for those of you who know, he has rarely missed time in his career. I believe that was the most games he ever missed in one sitting last year with the high ankle sprain. But overall, the dude does not miss games. But every year at the end, we're like, okay, Buck, you want to just tell us what you played through? And usually he'll just smile and be like, I was, working through a little something. And in that video, he's like naming like 4 or 5 body parts that were not feeling all too great. So in essence, what I'm getting at is that he's just one example of the physical toll they put on their bodies. And so to not be fully aware of what you're trying to negotiate in your contract because your NFLPA leader or your board is suppressing those findings about, what you could be fighting for or, contract guarantees is a really, really, really bad look.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that and see how it develops. In the meantime, it's the Fan Morning Show. James Boyd, Jeff Rickard, Mark Dykton. If you're just joining us this morning, thanks for being here. However you're listening to us, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan, the app, 93.1 HD2, right, Mark? That's probably
Correct.
The best way to listen to us. I think I said 0.3 yesterday, but it's 0.1. 93.1. That's the first thing I've gotten all week. How about that, James?
Hey, better late than never, brother.
I'm leaving on vacation now. I'm going out on a high note.
You can't check out now.
There was something pretty fascinating that happened yesterday, too. Rick Carlisle, we've heard from him on the Miles Turner situation now. He was part of a podcast with Chris Long, correct?
Yes, it is the Green Light Podcast. It is one of the better podcasts, I think, by a former athlete. And yes, if we have that audio, Mark, we can set it up here. I thought that we weren't going to hear from Rick Carlisle for a while. And just to preface this, because when I sent you all the audio yesterday, the first thing you asked me was, where's the rest of it? And this isn't the full episode, but they did drop a teaser on their Instagram page and also on Twitter. And here's what Rick Carlisle had to say about Miles Turner joining the Bucs and how the negotiations sort of went down.
Losing Miles Turner is a significant loss for our team. I mean, the guy's been a terrific player. He had a great season. And look, we were talking to them, meaning his agent, about him returning. And, really kind of out of nowhere, Milwaukee decided to waive Damian Lillard and stretch his money out over whatever number of years you can do it by rule. And then they created space to sign Miles. And so I think what probably happened, and this is part of negotiation in any sport, a team will say, hey, look, we have this offer. It's this much over this many years. But if we make this offer, we need to know that you're going to take it and not shop it. I believe that that's what probably happened with Milwaukee. They just jumped at it, and there's never a chance to counter. Those things happen. And when they do, you just got to keep going.
Yeah, it's kind of what we had talked about yesterday, and I've seen it happen so many times. If a team really, truly wants a guy, they'll bring him in. They'll give him the best offer that they have, and they think to themselves, nobody else is going to match this offer. But they also say exactly what Rick said there. Hey, look, we can't – this is a real offer for us. We don't want to be a stalking horse. If you're seriously interested in coming here, take this offer. Let's move forward. You're our number one choice. We want you. We want to know that we're your number one choice, too. If that's the case, sign this deal and let's move on. It sounds like that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, and again, this is all coming from the Pacers' perspective. I would love to hear from Miles' side of things, from the Bucks' side of things, to sort of verify or cross-reference what is being said. But I think that Rick Carlisle obviously has no reason to lie. I mean, the player is gone at this point, but to not have the chance to match, to me, that also means perhaps you did not offer enough initially. And that's the question I really want to get to the crux of is, well, really two things with Miles. One, did you just want to leave Indiana? Because if you wanted to leave, it doesn't matter how they went about negotiating with you. You were gone as soon as somebody else offered you the money you felt like was comparable to your talents and your skill set, and your experience. But then number two, did they come in too low initially? If there was a possibility to come back and you felt disrespected by that. Because to me, you can talk about you didn't have a chance to match, but there's no need to do that, again, if you just up the money from the beginning. So that was an interesting perspective from Rick.
One of the things that I keep going back to, you and I were over there when Kevin Pritchard was speaking to everybody the other day, and I appreciated what I felt like was pretty forthrightfulness. One of the phrases, though, I keep coming back to was we thought we were working towards a deal with Miles, which tells me that there was a lot of back and forth, just the way that's phrased right there. And maybe that back and forth was at a level that was so below what the Bucks were offering that the Turner team was like, yeah, we're never going to get to where this is.
Or perhaps they weren't even an option yet. And then the Bucks did a bunch of crazy stuff, and they were like, wait a second, we should probably, have a chance to weigh in on this or have a chance to try to, get you back in here if we can. But, I mean, the Bucks did something we've never seen in NBA history before. So just a very unique set of circumstances. I see in our YouTube chat right now, people are saying, hey, shout out to TM, who's in the chat every day. He was saying that the Bucks really came out of nowhere, and we have to see if the other teams will do this down the line as far as the waive and stretch provision. But to me, this is a very isolated incident, a very unique incident where we're not going to see very many versions of this going forward because, again, beyond Tyrese tearing his Achilles and that affecting what the Pacers would do this offseason, whether they admit it or not, I think it had to affect something as far as how much money you want to spend. And then on the flip side, the Bucks, if Damian Lillard doesn't tear his Achilles, he's not going to get waived and stretched for the most money ever. And again, for those who might be unfamiliar, the waive and stretch provision basically means that they waived him, cut him, and they stretched his remaining $112 million left on his deal that's fully guaranteed over the next 5 years. And that's just unprecedented to do. I mean, you don't pay $22 million in dead cap and in dead money that you can't use on any active player for a player who's no longer on your team. Like, that is, it's wild. It's desperate. It could be ingenious if it keeps Giannis happy at the end of the day, but very unique circumstances.
Ultimately, when we find out what Miles is thinking and why he decided to make that decision, it's going to be for someone like you a fascinating story to write, where at the end of the day, we always talk about how A leads to B leads to C, and E would have never happened if A and B didn't happen in the right order, the right way. But to have not one but two Achilles tears in prominent players ultimately lead to one of your players leaving for a team. Team A has a player that has an Achilles tear. Team B ends up having a player with an Achilles tear. And now Team A takes a player from Team B because of those two injuries. It's kind of fascinating. It's kind of a little wormhole to go down to.
It is. And you know what? Maybe we'll go down this wormhole with some of our listeners. So If you don't mind, Jeff, I would love to hear from what others had to say to Rick Carlisle's reaction to Miles Turner leaving. So if you're feeling froggy, leap on the show and join us, 239-1070, and share your thoughts on the Miles Turner situation, Rick Carlisle's reaction, and your reaction, because ultimately you all are the fans, and I would love to hear your perspective on one of what Kevin Pritchard labeled as the greatest Pacers ever leaving the franchise.
It was clear to hear Rick talk about Miles, too, that he's very disappointed that it happened this way. And he talked about how much Miles has meant to this team and was going to mean to this team. And look, he's been in the league for 10 years, but there's no reason to think he doesn't have another 3, 4, 5 good years left at this point in time.
Yeah, like I said, it might be a case of, hey, the hot girl I wanted to be with is kind of giving me the runaround, and this girl who might not be as pretty, but man, she looks pretty good anyway, she actually likes me, and so I'm going to hang out with her. And I think that is, in a nutshell, perhaps what may have happened. But again, I just want to hear from Miles. You signed the contract. Let's get the audio rolling, man. It's time to speak.
Yeah, I want to hear from that too. But he also, and we've seen other athletes like this where Miles is kind of in that really good but not great. And I think from years 2, 3, 4, 5 on, there were a lot of people that thought, man, if Miles can just get to one more level, right? The fact is, the guy's a really good three-point shooter. Forget what happened in the last few games of the NBA Finals, because I know a lot of people are going to focus just on that. But Miles is a pretty consistent guy. He is who he is. He's a guy that plays offense away from the basket. He's got a great jumper. He can make teams respect that. He's a terrific rim protector. And he likes to block shots. And even though he doesn't look like a gazelle moving up and down the floor, he does get up and down the floor. It looks labored at times, but he does it. And he does it consistently. And I think the thing about Miles is he's a really good basketball player. He might not be a top 8 center in the NBA, but he's a really good, productive player that the Pacers knew exactly what to do with and where he fit into what they were doing.
Yeah, you said top 8. I wonder if he is top 8 or if he's right there.
8, 10. I mean, there's only 30 teams in the league.
Yeah, but but I think it speaks to the position too, where there's not a whole lot of talent, I think, at the center position in the NBA.
Do we have a lot of true centers anymore in the NBA? Seems like everybody wants to play away from the basket. Some guys rebound, some guys don't.
Yeah,
some guys are rim protectors.
I feel like that's just the nature of the league now. You got to be able to shoot. Like, we're not going to see any.
I mean, we got 7-foot wing guys all over the place now.
Yeah, there's a reason Zach Edey's shooting threes now in the NBA. Like, you just got to be able to shoot. If you can't shoot, you can't play most of the time. And usually, if you have those liabilities out there, those teams get bounced pretty early. I'm thinking of like teams like the Lakers, Jared Vanderbilt. He can't shoot for a lick. They get played off the floor. You look at some of the Knicks players, Josh Hart. Mm-hmm. The Pacers really exploited him because he can't shoot at all, and so you need shooting. And I think getting it back to the Pacers, that's one of their strengths is that whenever they were playing their best basketball, Miles was part of that 5-man crew where everyone on the floor was a threat to score the ball pretty much from anywhere, and that is a value that the Bucks clearly see a lot of monetary value in by giving him that contract. And so we'll see how it works out for them. But one of the questions I do want to know, and we'll get more into as the season gets closer, is just how much better does this make the Bucks, if at all, and how do they stack up still against the Pacers? Because I can't wait for those types of matchups to unfold, both for the pettiness, but also just from the basketball standpoint to see who's actually the better team.
And also for the people who are not Team Miles, John in the afternoon was obviously always Team Miles, and he'd go back and forth with people. I think you're going to see the inherent value that Miles had right now, because now he's gone, and the Pacers and all of us are looking around going, okay, now what are we going to do? Because it's not like you can just go out and replace Miles Turner.
No, you definitely can't.
They're just, those guys are either locked up or just not available at this point in time.
Exactly.
And so that's where we're at right now. We'll talk more about that. 239-1070, number to call. It's a Thursday, middle of summer. Hope you're having fun. Maybe look, a lot of people leave a day or two early. Maybe they're heading out on vacation today. Listening to us while they're
join
in the family
Jeff in Europe if you got the funds.
Oh my goodness! I wish I had as many funds as y'all think. That would be good.
Hey, I'm in all seriousness though, enjoy the trip.
It's going to be a lot of fun, but I still got a lot of work to do here, and we're looking forward to talking to you guys about the Pacers, Colts, and anything else on your mind. 239-1070. We got a lot to do yet here at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning and welcome into the Fan Morning Show. James Boyd, Jeff Rickard, Mark Dykton here today. A reminder that you can hang out with all of us, and more importantly, we get to hang out with you at the 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan Golf Tournament, the Fan Invitational coming up with Franciscan Health on Thursday, August the 7th. Get a tee time of 10 o'clock in the morning, so we even let you sleep in a little bit. It'll be out at the beautiful Legends Golf Club. I know you'll be in Baltimore with the Colts that day, but I imagine Kevin and I will be doing the morning show from Legends Golf Club there. Jake is going to be out there. JMV is going to be there. Everybody's going to be hanging out. It's for a great cause. Franciscan Foundation does so much great work in the community, and you can help them make more of a meaningful impact. So it doesn't matter if you're a scratch golfer, seasoned golfer. We'll take pro golfers. Anybody. Come on out and join us for fun, camaraderie, chance to mingle with all of us. Thursday, August the 7th, 10 o'clock. Go to 1075thefan.com right now. You can register today. A few more spots filling up every single day. Get your clubs ready and join us for a big event. And you can make a difference with every single tap-in. And that's what it's going to be all day long. People just going to be tapping in for birdies and pars.
Double dip. Join us in the morning.
Yep.
Then we can talk some Colts and get ready for the Colts preseason opener that night. There you go.
I like it. We're going to have you stuck back here. Maybe we'll get Kylan to come in and run the show that
I'm
day.
fine either way. I mean, we can grab some slingshots. I can launch some beers at people on the tee box. We'll be going to town out there.
You know those little guns that shoot the T-shirts up into the crowd like you see at the Pacers games? Mark's got one of those for beer cans. He just starts fire them around.
I'm fittingly wearing a Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt. I will throw you guys some beers.
I was going to say, that is the most Stone Cold Steve Austin thing you could do.
Now, it's funny because we all have our own little things, right? You come with like a different basketball-themed T-shirt almost every day, James. You've got tons of them.
This is my basketball she wrote shirt. Shout out to Caitlin Cooper, who covers the Pacers and has her own Patreon, and I believe might even have a Substack as well. And she does a fantastic job of breaking down the game. I think I provide a lot more like feature-y background stuff when it comes to players, who they are, and she's more X's and O's. And so I have learned more basketball from Caitlin Clark, probably.
Caitlin Cooper.
I'm sorry, Caitlin Cooper.
And Caitlin Clark. Probably.
Yeah, both. I get them all mixed. Both CCs, but Caitlin Cooper.
You take shirts from Caitlin Clark if she offered them to you, of course.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? I probably, would be able to sell it for a lot of money. But no, Caitlin Cooper is certainly somebody I learned a lot from.
So I was bringing that up because of your wardrobe, your T-shirt wardrobe, what would you say the percentage of professional wrestling themed T-shirts?
I do have a few, but I don't wear them much.
A lot of Cubs T-shirts I see.
I have a lot of Cubs shirts. Yes, that is true. Cubs shirts, lots of sports related shirts. Shout out to the shop where I get a lot of my stuff from. But I do have some wrestling shirts, and I will throw them on. There's some wrestling pay-per-views this weekend, so I'm sure I will don more than a couple wrestling shirts and be the coolest dad in Brownsburg as I walk the streets.
I thought you already are the coolest dad in Brownsburg.
I mean, the rankings are still not official. I would like to think I am, but
I mean, it's pretty much down to you and gosh, who else would it be?
I don't know. We have like a conglomerate of like media people that live in Brownsburg. There's me. There's Mike Wells. There's Rob Kendall from WIBC. There's a few of us out there, so we get together. It's the trifecta.
I like that. Any Miles Turner's T-shirts?
I know Miles Turner. I have an old Domantas Sabonis shirt though.
Ooh.
So that one's that's probably my oldest Pacers shirt I have.
Yeah. One of the things I do miss about Domas, and obviously the right moves were made as it all turns out, but when he was shipped out to Sacramento, that guy is really good with the basketball in his hands. I mean, he's got Jokic-like court vision a little bit like his dad, when he gets a ball in his hands. He sees the court extremely well.
I feel like that's one of the rare trades where it was a win-win for both teams. Like usually there's one that has
to me.
Well, Sacramento's never really turned.
You think it's a win-win?
Well, I think as far as like the quality of the player that you got in return, like yes, the Kings aren't very good, but I would say Domantas Sabonis is still a solid return. They had Buddy Hield at the time, but I do think that it worked out as far as the quality of player in regards.
I would say, Mark, you are a very nice man, and you want to be nice to the Kings fan base, but it is not a win-win trade. It is when one team went to the finals, and the other team, they
went to the conference finals the year before that.
Yes, the Pacers. That is. I mean, the other team, I don't even think they won a playoff series. So
that's more on the organization, though. The trade itself, the
organization made the trade.
That's true, but I'm saying if you're going to get.
I hear you, but
as player talent-wise, I'm not saying postseason success, but I'm saying as far as talent-wise.
But
They're probably
but
like,
the
oh,
idea
okay.
is to find postseason
Yeah, I guess
success.
my pushback, Mark, and I'm just really just ragging on you here a bit. My pushback will be, well, you had the player that could get you the success in the playoffs, and you didn't guess right. You chose De'Aaron Fox, you paid him, and he's no longer there either.
He's gone too. That's true.
So it's looking rough over there. If you told me this a couple years ago when they had pushed the Warriors to Game 7 and Steph had to score 50 in Sacramento to get them to round 2, I would be like, you know what? Fair. But since then, it has been all Pacers winning that trade. So it is certainly, a little tough pill to swallow over there for them. But Pacers fans got to be excited about having Tyrese Halliburton in tow, even despite him missing all of next year. So I do want to pivot a bit, though.
We should have that conversation in 2023. I apologize.
Yes,
a couple
yes.
years late to that
Yeah,
one.
No,
because
make a note of that, Mark. Put that
I was
in
thinking,
your
Mark,
schedule.
Time
like these
machine.
folks here in Indianapolis will not let you live this down. So I'll save you, brother, because that is not an even trade anymore. One of the things I do want to dive into, though, is with this Indiana Fever team and the version we've seen, I am concerned with what Stephanie White labeled as a lack of discipline. And when I was able to ask her a question yesterday, I think I used the word focus. And I was like, why is the team maybe not as focused as you want them to be? And she was like, no, they're focused, but they don't have discipline. Like, you'd be focused without discipline. And I was like, this is the most semantics I've ever heard in my life. Focus, discipline, they all go hand in hand. Yeah, if you ain't got one, you ain't got the other. But nevertheless,
I think you need focus. I think what she might be saying is you have to have focus to get the discipline, and maybe they just didn't get to that second part.
yeah, I mean, she was saying that their focus isn't an issue. It's the discipline, it's the execution of their game plans. But to have this theme of knowing your scouting report and not being able to execute it, especially as poorly as they did the other day, or yesterday, that is, that to me was a red flag on the Fever season. And I was just thinking to myself, man, as well as you all have played recently, I think that was something that you have to nip in the bud very quickly. This cannot be something where we're looking up again. It sounds like they're saying a lot of like the circular things. We got to play more together. We got to stay more focused. We got to be more disciplined. All of these things. When are we going to start seeing some of those results more consistently? Because that game yesterday is about as bad as we've seen them play, and you really can't have that happen again if you're a serious basketball team.
Here's what's interesting, and we had talked about the fact that even without Caitlin Clark, it looked like they'd kind of turned a corner. They played really well at Dallas, won that game. Then they come back and they just crush Minnesota in the Commissioner's Cup. And then they come right back out of that in the game that I took my son to, where they just were all over Las Vegas and Asia Wilson, and just boom, right? They looked fantastic. And then I know Caitlin comes back, but and I'm not putting this on Caitlin at all, because she's clearly a great player, but she missed 5 games, correct, this last time?
Yes.
Caitlin Clark on the floor with the Fever, they've now lost 3 games in a row and 5 of the last 6 that she's played, I believe, if my math is right.
I believe, I just know this season, I believe they're 5-5 with Caitlin Clark, and they're 4-5 without her. So now I would say in some of those games she has played, she hasn't played well, and part of that was because she was playing through injuries. But yeah, none of them looked good yesterday. But even beyond,
and this is not to blame Caitlin at all. I'm just saying, I don't know when she's on the floor if they've really come together as a cohesive unit sometimes. Whether she's hurt or yesterday, everything was out of whack. And again, it's not on. I want to make sure people are clear. I'm not putting this on Caitlin Clark. They just don't seem to have found a consistent groove altogether at this point in time.
Absolutely, but to a certain degree, and I get this was her first game back, so I'll give her some grace there. But overall, playing through the injuries and things like that, part of it is on you when you're the star. That's just the reality of it. We can talk about that with Tyrese Halliburton. We can talk about that with any star player when it comes to leading your team. Part of it is always going to be on you, fair or unfair. And I think that's a honest assessment of what you're looked at when you're in that space, when you're told you're the face of the league, when you're carrying that mantle. But to your point, Jeff, it has looked discombobulated. I don't know if I loved the 2-guard lineup to start with Ari McDonald alongside Caitlin Clark. I know Stephanie White has mentioned that she wants to get Caitlin off the ball a bit more to keep her fresher throughout games and things of that nature. But I also don't want to lose the value of having Caitlin Clark run the show. Now, yesterday was a bit weird because it was not what we usually see from Caitlin in her minutes. And I believe she only played about 25 minutes yesterday. And, I mean, I'll have to double check to make sure I get the specific number right. But most of the time, Caitlin Clark plays 30-plus minutes a night, close to 40, because she's just out there the entire game. She's that important to the team. So I thought that the 3 or 4 minute burst they had her in the game was a bit different than what she is used to. And she even mentioned after the game, it can be a little bit harder to try to find a rhythm or get in your groove when you're not playing your usual rotation minutes. But even when she was in there, she didn't really look like herself. Took a lot of, I think, tough twos yesterday, which was, a bit unique. And I know people are complaining about the physicality she was dealing with. But the bottom line is, until she is able to adjust to it, that's how not NFL, but WNBA teams are going to defend her. They're going to be physical. They're going to bump her, and things of that sort. So I just think that this team is a bit rudderless. They look rudderless yesterday. I don't want to necessarily put them down too much because they're okay. They're still in the playoff hunt as of right now, but some things have to sort of get pushed in the right direction going forward.
I am surprised how much they've struggled considering all the offseason acquisitions, the return of Stephanie White and all that. Like, I thought there was going to be a little more stability there.
Yeah.
Even if Caitlin Clark was to miss some games, and they're just not gelling. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just like...
It fluctuates. It's wild. They'll look fantastic for a game or two, and then they look awful for a game or two.
I mean, but they just haven't strung it together even consistency-wise. Like, you think at this point in the season they'd start finding, even if they were uneven to start out, they'd find their footing and start finding each other's strengths and feeding off of that, and they haven't done that. Now they're, still middling around 500, below 500, and they just can't get it going, and I'm not sure exactly what's going wrong.
Yeah, they will play at home tomorrow night against Atlanta. They will play at home Sunday against Dallas. They have 4 games remaining before the All-Star break, and when you look at Atlanta, Dallas, at Connecticut, at New York, even the way they played this year, it's not inconceivable they could go 3-1 in that 4-game stretch, James.
Or 1-3.
Well, they could.
Like that. That's how they've been.
Again, I'm trying to be Mr. Positive over there, and you turn it right back around.
It's hard to be positive after yesterday. I'm dead serious. Like, that team was bad. That was a bad team we saw yesterday. So,
but yet they were good in the first quarter. What changed?
That's the question they need to answer, and I think a lot of it had to do with how stagnant their offense looked, moving Caitlin more off the ball, and perhaps not being quicker with their decisions. She was saying that Stephanie White, that is, that she felt they kind of passed up some open looks and maybe over dribbled or over passed, and they didn't play more decisive. And then defensively, I thought that they were just never in rotation. Golden State, they're one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the league, and you wouldn't know that based on how the Fever defended them. They had so many open looks. And even beyond that, Stephanie White was saying it's an effort thing where they got all the offensive rebounds when they needed to. They got second chance points. They got to all the loose balls. And that just can't happen because we know shots and shot making will kind of come and go in basketball, but your effort, your dogness, if that's a word, needs to be at a higher level, especially against, teams that are, gunning for you. Not Stephanie White, I'm sorry. Sophie Cunningham said it a couple of weeks ago. Everyone wants to beat us. We're not the most loved team. And that is 100% true. Every team, you are what I would, kind of put, at least in my short time watching basketball, on that level where the Miami Heat were when they had LeBron James, D. Wade, and Chris Bosh, where you're rock stars and everyone pays to come see you, but they also pay to come see you lose sometimes. That wasn't the case yesterday because it was a home game. But yeah, you're going to get every team's best shot. You're not going to be the most loved team. Everyone doesn't love Caitlin Clark, clearly, but how do you respond to that?
Yeah, and they haven't won more than 2 games in a row, not counting the Commissioner's Cup game, which didn't count for standings or statistics or anything like that.
Right.
They've won 3 games in a row all season long. Their longest winning streak is 2 games. That's it.
Well, they've only played 19 so far, too.
But we're halfway through the season at this point.
I would agree with Mark on that. Yeah.
Again, if you have championship aspirations, you can't be just middling like they have been, where you're winning only a couple games here, then dropping you're just floating around 500 all season. That's all they've been doing.
I agree.
Yeah, they're 9-10, and look, again, the one thing that Caitlin needs to work on, it was a problem last year. It seems a touch better so far this year, but again, in 25 minutes yesterday, 4 turnovers. She's got to be a point guard that limits those turnovers to 2 and 3 a game at max.
Absolutely. And again, I'll give her some grace yesterday, coming back from the injury, perhaps not as sharp as she normally is, but overall, she has, to this point in her career, turned it over far too often to be running an offense that's going to be successful. But I do want to see them get more, perhaps, back to what we saw earlier in the season, really from the first game of the season. I believe she had a triple-double, where she's running the show. Mm-hmm. And even if it is a lot of pressure on her, it's probably a better outcome than having her play off the ball so much.
It's where she's best, I think, don't you?
Yes. I think that she's one of the better just offensive engines we've probably ever seen in the WNBA, even this earlier in her career. It's just a matter of, can you become more efficient in that? So they're working through some things. I think that Stephanie White has kind of she's been thrown some tough, tasks just because of the injuries, the difference in rotations, DeWanna Bonner wanting out, things of that nature. But at some point, we got to move past what we look at as some of your hurdles and figure out, okay, what are you as a team? And right now, you're an inconsistent team, and inconsistent teams lose when it matters the most.
Yeah, 9-10 is not what we thought we were getting from this Fever team when the season started, but there's still more than half the season remaining, including a game tomorrow night at the Fieldhouse against Atlanta. That one starts at 7:30, 7:15 airtime here with the Fan pregame show. Eddie Garrison, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Mark, let's check things down.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We were talking about yesterday's game. It was a noon start, and maybe it was the early time that threw the Fever off. Although they came out of the gate quickly, they ended up losing by a score of 80-61 against the expansion Valkyries, and a game in which Caitlin Clark played 25 minutes. She had 10 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. She was 4 of 12 from the floor, 2 of 5 from three-point range, but nobody else was really shooting well, James. Kelsey Mitchell was 1 for 5. Ari McDonald was 1 for 7 in three-point shooting, just to give you an example of how things just wouldn't go down in the basket.
The only team that time zone should have affected should have been Golden State, and they looked just fine yesterday.
Yeah, the Fever led 23-21 at the end of the first quarter, and then, to your point earlier, James, they scored 9 points in the second quarter and only 10 in the fourth quarter, and you just can't get that done.
That was some bad basketball, and got to flush it and move on for tomorrow's game.
Hopefully the kids had fun though. The kids that were out there.
It was loud. It was a good environment for sure.
Did you have the old man napkin in the ears, too loud in here?
Nah, you know what? There actually wasn't as many kids as they've had in years past, because I think just the popularity of Caitlin Clark. It was a lot of adults who were taking the day off and had kids there, but it wasn't a typical kids camp day, and maybe we'll see some of those get phased out, mainly because in years past it was used to boost attendance and boost sort of the fandom of the WNBA. But as we've seen, Caitlin Clark is like the outlier, where she can get people to come at 3 a.m. if she was playing at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and that's what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, I was leaving the garage yesterday. I saw plenty of people walking around wearing Fever gear and all that stuff. It's like, this is about to be a pretty busy noon game.
Yeah, I had an appointment yesterday downtown. I had to walk about 4 blocks there and back. And to your point, Mark, there were – we build those matinee games as a game for the kids, but I saw lots of adults with Fever gear walking
Iowa
around
gear,
downtown.
Everything.
Yeah, it's always good. And it's always 22, whether it's Fever, whether it's Iowa, whether it's whatever. 22 gear is very popular, but they'll try again tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Indiana Pacers, at least the Summer League version, will try it today, 2 o'clock in the afternoon out in Las Vegas against the Cleveland Cavaliers Summer League team. And James, you and I were talking about the roster as it is that is out there right now. I don't know if we're going to see Cam Jones or not. One of the initial rosters that I looked at didn't even have him listed on there. So we'll see. Did they take him to Las Vegas? Do we know?
Yeah, I believe he probably made the trip. The reason he wasn't listed on the initial roster was because he hadn't been officially traded yet. In that trade with the San Antonio Spurs to acquire the number 38 pick, which then turned into Cam Jones. So once he was officially signed and the official trade went through, he was immediately added to the roster. So we'll see if he's in action today. But I know Kevin Pritchard said earlier this week he was dealing with a hamstring injury. But regardless, Pacers basketball is back, baby. It's not the NBA Finals, but it's something, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, Talon Peter, the other second-round draft pick that the Pacers had, should be there. And the kid from Liberty is I'm curious to see if he can score in the Summer League.
Yeah, I am actually really intrigued by him just because there's so little that we actually know about him. All we know is that he can shoot, and I really want to see. Is that 70% from two really?
Yeah, that's
legit?
crazy.
That's insane.
That's what you would want from a big man, not a guard.
Maybe he'll be like the breakout summer league star. There's always like one or two guys.
I'll take it, man.
He'll take some headlines from Bronny James or something.
Yeah, you get one more guy that can come off the bench for a few minutes and light up a couple of baskets. That's always helpful, man. Always helpful.
Entertain me in July. That's all you need to do.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah.
So anyway, that comes your way 2:00 later on this afternoon. Major League Baseball, we are right in the heart of it right now, leading up to their All-Star game. Cincinnati Reds over the Marlins 7-2 yesterday. Cardinals losing at home to Washington 8-2 was the final score there. And the Minnesota Twins, somehow, some way, I don't know how it happened, Mark, but they were able to get the better of the Chicago Cubs 4-2.
I'm telling the daughters, we're not doing anything today. I need to watch. This is must-see TV. I need to make sure I'm watching it because they cannot get swept by the Twins before they face the Yankees. Can't happen. Won't happen. I'm guaranteeing a Cubs victory tonight.
Now, speaking of the Yankees, you see they optioned DJ LeMahieu yesterday.
I can't believe that man is still playing baseball. I feel like he's been on that team for 2 decades.
I read an article that said there was a very difficult discussion had, and it's probably one of those that maybe it's just time.
Well, you know what? He got what, $22 million to go away. I mean, you guys can give me that, and you'll never see me again.
Yeah, but
one quick correction: the game today is at 5 p.m. Eastern time.
Which game?
The Pacers when they play the Cavs.
Eastern. Oh, yeah, the 2:00 is the local time. Yeah, I'm
so
sorry.
they play at 5 p.m. today on NBA
I was
TV.
reading off the NBA site. I apologize for that. So yeah, that's the local time. So 5 p.m. our time.
Yep.
Is that going to be on NBA TV?
That is a good question. I'm
Usually
not
they
100% sure it'll be blacked out or not, but I'm hoping they don't black out Summer League games.
It says it's going to be on FanDuel Sports Network, and it'll be on NBA TV.
So that means it probably will be blacked out unless you're watching from FanDuel.
Mm-hmm. Or you can stream it somehow.
Yeah, you have other ways of watching.
Well, I don't know how. Sorry, excuse me. It's something in my throat.
I don't know what you're talking about right there. That's just what's happening right now. Anything else you want to throw in before we head to break here, big guy?
No, well, I do want to. We will get into what, like I said, Lexi Hull said after the game. I think we'll play that audio here coming up from the break so you all can hear from her where the Fever are and what they need to improve on. All
right, we'll do that next as we continue the Fan Morning Show along with my man, what's your name again?
My name is James Boyd.
And you're Mark Dykton, and I'm Jeffrey. Just play the game with me sometimes. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
So we got Scott Agnes coming up here at 8:30, and then we have, I believe, my buddy Charles McDonald from Yahoo Sports coming up at 9:30 to talk NFL.
Yes, we do. All right, James. I'll try to go regroup here. Get on the same page with you guys as we continue on the Fan Morning Show next.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
James Boyd got the head bop going over there. We're all good to go, having a great time this summer, and thanks for joining us here on the Fan Morning Show. And let's welcome in our next guest now, too, a frequent flyer here, as we like to say, on the Payless Liquors hotline. That would be Scott Agnes from the Fieldhouse Files. He covers the Fever and the Pacers, and he joins us now. How's your Thursday morning going so far, my man?
Good morning. Just getting started.
Yeah, well,
Spoken like a true sports reporter, Scott. I love it.
Like James, we start the show at 7. He wakes up about 6:42 every morning, something like that. Right?
I'll be here, though.
Yep, you're here every morning. I'll ask you the same thing I asked James right off the top of the show. What happened?
In terms of what?
That game yesterday.
Oh, Fever. So Fever, yeah. It was a situation, man. I'm tired of this same storyline that keeps popping its head up. They'll play a great game, and then the very next game or two later, they'll be reiterating how the players didn't know their personnel and they didn't execute the game plan. And it's things that the first month of the season, I think you can somewhat understand with so many new things and many new coaching staff and such. But they totally laid the egg, especially there in the second and fourth quarter. 19 combined points, the same total they had in that third quarter. It was just not a pleasant performance by them.
So, Scott, I believe you were the one who followed up with the team after the game and was kind of questioning, hey, why does this keep happening? And no one really had a clear-cut answer. But from your perspective, having covered the team so closely this year, what themes have you seen perhaps, besides, I guess, injuries and changes to lineups, that have kind of led this Fever team to be so up and down?
Yeah, I think the beyond the obvious ones, it's just the difference in how players are utilized and different rotations and the lineup shuffling in and out. It certainly doesn't help that Caitlin and Damaris were gone and all of that. And that, for many reasons, doesn't impact maybe assignments or the way in which they're going to play this game or that. But I never like it when they talk about, effort and not having a fiery passion and things like that, because it's basically what we heard James yesterday was them come to the podium and say, we're disappointed in ourselves. We didn't have it, and there's no excuse. And it's hard to hear that multiple times now. And what it almost suggests is you're missing that central group person to hold them accountable. And maybe you wanted that to be DeWanna Bonner. And by the way, that was a piece you didn't expect to want to leave, 10 games into the season. And so they've certainly dealt with all kinds of things. I've labeled kind of the first month and a half of the season just full of disruptions that haven't allowed for anything to be constant. But that's something that they've got to jumpstart and not allow to happen, especially here in the next week where they got 4 tough games headed into the All-Star break.
Aside from their problems offensively, I mean, Veronica Burton and Kayla Thornton yesterday, just the two of them just dominated the Fever. How does that happen where two players can just take over like that?
Yeah, they were suffocating defensively, especially. And what we're finding and seeing more and more of is teams are just saying, hey, let's go all out on Caitlin, whether it's full court, whether it's half court, and just throw 2 at her. Let's blitz her. Let's take her out of the equation and see how everybody reacts. And so far, it hasn't been great, whether it's players not sliding over to come get the ball or just sloppy turnovers or her forcing the issue. That's something that we've seen, for example, their opponent coming up Friday, Atlanta, have great success with, is just taking away her airspace, being as physical as the refs allow, and then forcing the rest of the bunch to adapt out there. And so that's kind of been the concerning part when she has been out there, is they haven't been able to get into that free-flowing, up-tempo, fast-paced, and in rhythm offensive style that they're trying to get into.
Two-parter here for you, Scott. Number one, how would you assess how Caitlin Clark looked in her return? And number two, how would you assess the lineup shuffle of having Ari McDonald start alongside Caitlin? And could we see Lexi Hall possibly go back to the starting lineup after maybe an unsuccessful, is how I would put it, rendition of the Ari and Caitlin pairing yesterday?
Yeah, in terms of Caitlin, I thought she did just fine. Nothing spectacular, but I didn't necessarily expect that. I could see her tug her jersey and say, "Hey, take me out," after about 4.5 minutes, which is totally expected when you haven't
She sets
played.
the bar high, though, I must say, because the last time she came back from an injury, it was like, I missed no time at all, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was when she missed with these couple of weeks, you have no game rhythm, flow, and timing and anything like that. So for her wanting to go out, I think this is probably, I've never asked anyone this, I would guess playing this style is also the most challenging to return from an injury or from significant time off or being out of the rotation, just because you lose that natural maybe endurance that you had built up. And you're not just playing out of the half court and cutting from the right side to the left baseline and basic things like that. Now, in terms of the starting lineup, I was a little bit surprised. I thought we would see Ari McDonald come off the bench but stagger her so that she would play alongside Caitlin, because that's the number one thing they wanted to accomplish with the lineup there, is to allow for her and Caitlin in the backcourt to share in responsibilities. And it goes off of much of what I was just talking about a minute or so ago, just because of how overwhelming defenses are in trying to defend her and contest the inbounds pass when it's at the opposite basket with Caitlin. So if they can ease up that pressure, I thought, Stephanie White said it well, if she can not be under duress for 94 feet, that's good not just for that game, for her longevity for the season. So I would not be surprised if they go back to Lexi Hall in that starting lineup and Ari off the bench. But again, obviously, I would like to see her with Caitlin, but I think they found something with Lexi in that group in the starting lineup.
Talking to Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files here on the Fan Morning Show. Let's talk Pacers now for a second. We heard on at least a leaked excerpt from a podcast yesterday, Rick Carlisle commenting on the departure of Miles Turner. What did you make of his content, of his thought that, hey, Milwaukee just made him an offer he couldn't refuse and said, hey, probably don't shop this around or the offer will be gone, and that was that. What do you make of that?
I view, Jeff, that as kind of just a natural thinking. That's what was my assumption as well here as we all continue to try to report on this, is that's the one thing that makes sense, along with, unless it's the thought of, he was so upset by that first offer by the Pacers that he told his agent and said, hey, I need to find something else. Those would be the only lines of thinking. And I'm hoping Miles has an introductory press conference here in the next week, so maybe he can provide some clarity on that thinking. But that does happen occasionally, is somebody will step in, call an agent, say, here's our deal, take it or leave it. Kind of reminds me, if you watch Shark Tank with Mark Cuban, he does it on that show. Mm-hmm. The deal or now, or I'm out. And so if you're Miles, you're sitting there, comparing the deals, and ultimately he got a trade kicker in there, and that might be important to him, given the fact that he felt like he's been in trade conversations quite a bit. I think he got a player option in there as well, which is significant for a center who's going to be 33 years old for that fourth year. And so they sweetened the deal. They did something that they wanted, and so I was not surprised. And so I think that was kind of all our natural thinking of what Rick had to say in terms of how the events unfolded there. But I will say Miles and those he's close with have been awfully quiet. I knew something was up that first night of free agency, Jeff, because nobody from the Pacers or Miles' side. It was complete silence. Usually you'll get a couple answers. It was silence, and that's where something was off. And obviously now we know why.
Well, Scott, I need you to take a chair from the Turner's block over to the opening press conference and say, look at what you left. Look at what you left behind. And
I love those guys. What are they going to do now?
I know. Yeah. And then Miles will probably say, look, you can't put loyalty in the bank, but you can't put cash in there. So I respect Miles' decision. But if you had to ask Miles one question about how everything went down, what would it be and why?
I think it would be something to the lines of what was the motivating factor to move on from the Pacers? Or was it simply the offer was not good enough, or there was something else you were seeking?
Yeah, and the reason I asked that, Scott, is because I ultimately wonder if Miles just wanted to move on. And I know you can't speak for him, but you have been on this beat for years. I mean, And you know that he dealt with the trade rumors year in and year out. And at some point, you do want to be the guy that's wooed, that's loved, and that's sort of respected. And I wonder how much that factored into it. The last thing I'll ask you, at least on this front regarding the Pacers and Miles, his replacement is kind of up in the air when it comes to Jay Huff or Isaiah Jackson, who's likely to re-sign, or James Wiseman, who's coming back, and Tony Bradley, who got a team option picked up. So how do you see that four-man group kind of sorting itself out? As Kevin Pritchard said, they give them a chance, all of a chance, to sort of, rise to the top and earn some more minutes.
Yeah, James, to your first point in terms of not feeling the love, yeah, I think that's very real. It's exactly how Buddy Hield felt as he saw his teammates get extensions. Remember a couple of years ago, and he's sitting there like, okay, that's cool, but like, all right, what about mine? And he wasn't able to get the number he wanted. So what did he do? He wanted to be moved so he could showcase what he could do, and he did ultimately in Philly, and then got a new deal. Now he still didn't get the number that he was trying to get from the Pacers. And I wonder, maybe Miles felt the same way. I've not talked to him yet. But last summer he saw 6 guys get contract extensions, and all very good value. So I do wonder if maybe he was like, all right, if that's not what my true value is, I'll go find my true value. And this is why I want to emphasize to people, this is why, while it's nice if you can represent yourself in some cases, this is why you go hire one of the best agents there are in the league, that maybe there isn't a market, and he just created one. Nobody expected this wave and stretch with Damian Lillard. Now, to your second point, man, I think a lot of it's just going to be wait and see, because my challenge here is 2 of the 4 guys are coming off Achilles injuries. So
good point.
If you go 12 months, you're looking at November 1st-ish at best right there. And oftentimes we see it takes guys longer than that. Now, I will say the Pacers obviously have better knowledge than anyone, because over these last 7 or 8 months or so, Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman have been working out at this facility. So they're getting hands-on. They're getting to watch. They're getting to see how they can move and maneuver and such. But for me, I thought for sure you'd bring back at least one of those guys that is dealing with Achilles. 2, I thought I was a little bit surprised, just given that injury and the need at that position. But it looks like at this juncture they got several guys that can plug the hole, but maybe not a clear-cut starter as we head into camp coming up in late September.
Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files, joining us on the Fan Morning Show on the Payless Liquors Hotline. We got Summer League starting later on today, 5 p.m. The Pacers Summer League team will take on the Cleveland Summer League team. What are you most interested in seeing there?
I think Johnny Furphy. Him and Can Jones, although with Jones suffering a hamstring injury of some kind here in the last couple of months, I'm not sure to what extent we'll see him. But I want to see Johnny Furphy just dominate for 2 games and be done. I think that would be huge. And then just the draft picks is just the natural curiosity. You could also add maybe the fact that Quentin Jackson just got a new 2-way deal. We got to remember last year, late November or whatever it was, when all their guards were dealing with injuries, he stepped up for like 7 games. And I even started a handful of them as well. I'll never forget him leading them in scoring down in Houston, for example. He'll be called upon, I think, for many games this season, potentially, just given their depth and such in that backcourt. And so is he taking another leap? What is he able to add to his game, given that the Pacers feel that he's in their plans for at least another year now? So most of it, you don't take too much, Jeff, from Summer League at all. If anything, you're probably most concerned if a second or third year guy does not perform well. And then the rookies, you just try to see, what can they contribute without knowing anyone on the team or any of the offense or anything like that.
Thanks for joining us, buddy. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Scott Agnes joining us there. Let's just look up and down the roster of the Summer League team for the Pacers. If you want to feel old, James, there's only a couple of guys that were born pre-year 2000, and those were in 98 and 99.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Honestly, I'm getting a little older. I used to be like, man, I'd be in my whatever each season if I was in the NBA. Like, nah, these guys are young. And now I'm starting to see the birthdays, and it's getting to those 2000s, like Jeff said. But that's the way it goes. I will say,
Furphy's the youngest of the guys out there. How about that?
And that's why I think he has, in addition to his age, his size, the ability to shoot the ball, he's a leaper as well. he's got a lot of enticing traits, but one thing I'll push back on Scott Agnes about, and this is really hard-hitting stuff here, the Pacers just lost Game 7 in the NBA Finals. We can't be sitting Johnny Furphy after 2 games. We got to leave Vegas with something. Got to leave Vegas with something.
I
want
think
that
his thought is you don't want him to get hurt after those 2 games.
I want to raise a banner.
Yes, I would say I wouldn't mind seeing the Pacers in the Summer League Championship. And let's just say if they knock off OKC on the way there, do we swap banners or something like that? Do you hang something for that?
Treat the game against OKC like Game 8.
That's how it works. Coming up next, we will continue to talk about the Pacers. Rick Carlisle had thoughts on the Miles Turner departure. We'll hear from him next as we continue at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Pulling stuff straight off my playlist today.
I hacked into
Dig
your
it.
phone. I checked your Spotify. I was like, this is the jams. Lots of talk, lots of Pat Benatar,
All good stuff.
Alanis Morissette,
All good stuff.
Barney and Friends soundtrack. I thought that was a little odd.
Well, I did have
Veggie Tales.
I did have young kids for a while there.
I said it was on
we
your
did-
Spotify Wrapped from last year. I don't know.
No, it's not from last year. Maybe a couple years ago. Good morning, everyone. Welcome into the Fan Morning Show. James Boyd, Jeff Rickard, and Mark Dykton with you. And we've been talking about the Pacers and Fever all morning long. And kind of something interesting that you found yesterday, Chris Long, who has a podcast, welcomed in Rick Carlisle. And they haven't released the entire podcast yet, but they did kind of tease it by releasing one soundbite from Coach Carlisle where he's talking about losing Miles Turner.
Yep, it is from the Green Light podcast. And again, former NFL player Chris Long, who, by the way, I think does a great job and obviously got a great guest on there for our purposes. So here is what Rick Carlisle had to say about the Miles Turner negotiations and how things went down from his perspective.
Losing Miles Turner is a significant loss for our team. I mean, the guy's been a terrific player. He had a great season. And look, we were talking to them, or talking to them, meaning his agent, about him returning. And, really kind of out of nowhere, Milwaukee decided to waive Damian Lillard and stretch his money out over whatever number of years you can do it by rule. And then they created space to sign Miles. And so I think what probably happened, and this is part of negotiation in any sport, a team will say, hey, look, we have this offer. It's this much over this many years. But if we make this offer, we need to know that you're going to take it and not shop it. I believe that that's what probably happened with Milwaukee. They just jumped at it, and there's never a chance to counter. Those things happen. And when they do, you just got to keep going.
I think he's probably right, and it's certainly interesting to get his perspective on that. I like the fact that at the very beginning he was very, complimentary of Miles Turner. And I just wonder if with all the trade rumors that have gone on forever with Miles, maybe taking a little bit of heat from people about his particular performance in the NBA Finals, the fact that he gets a trade kicker, the fact that he gets a player option, the fact that they were offering maybe way more money ultimately than the Pacers were. Take it or leave it right now. It's a pretty good deal to turn down right there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there is certainly more to the story. I want to hear from Miles, and hopefully we hear from him before we head into the weekend here, before tomorrow's show, basically. But until then, we'll re-rack and get you set for the 9 o'clock hour. I know we got to hit a break here soon. So, stick around with us, and we'll dive more into the Miles Turner conversation. And like I said earlier, if you want to weigh in, feel free to give us a call, 239-1070.
All right, coming up in a moment, though, we'll talk to, in the next hour, we'll talk to Charles McDonald from Yahoo Sports about the Colts from the NFL perspective. And we start getting ready to welcome everybody there back in, 12 days now. We're getting close. Got
to wash that bucket hat.
Looking
Pristine bucket hat.
Yes. And I'll be signing bucket hats because of you, Mark.
You always talk about you're going to wash the bucket hat. When does it actually get washed?
The day before.
Okay.
I'm a productive procrastinator.
All right. I like that. We'll check it out next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning, everyone. We've been talking a lot about the Pacers and the Fever today and all the things that have been taking place and how it's all working. And I also saw that, the Suns, they're kind of remaking themselves in the NBA, too. Obviously, Kevin Durant moves over to Houston. Devin Booker got another $145 million extension yesterday, so he seems to be committed to the bit there in Phoenix.
Yeah, he's going to get so many max contracts. I think this might be his third max contract or extension.
Max extension, yeah.
And he is only still in his 20s. So he has a lot more money to make in his career. Very good player. And I will always love Devin Booker because of what he did for Team USA. Very underrated player for the Team USA. Avengers last summer. He did all the dirty work, all the little things, made big shots, made great passes. So shout out to D-Book.
I like Devin Booker, but it feels like he's one of those young guys that feels like he's been around for like a decade plus, 15 years almost, it feels like.
Yeah, he was super young when he got to the NBA. And fun fact, he is the player that I have seen score the most points in an NBA game live. He scored 62 against the Pacers. Oof. And the Pacers won that game, by the way.
That's a high mark to try to top.
Ooh, he scored. It's the building record for Gamers Fieldhouse. I believe Devin Booker has 4 building records for scoring in the NBA. So that dude will go down as one of the best scorers you will ever see.
The most I ever saw was like 42 points from Ben Gordon back in the day. He had like one of those hot streaks in the Bulls uniform, and he just went off for like 42 points. So this is how
Chicago my family is, and my uncle loved Ben Gordon. And he would go off, this is 6th man of the year, Ben Gordon. He would call him Ben Jordan because he was getting buckets like that. So Ben Jordan was a big household staple for us.
Closest I've been to a huge scoring game. I've covered a bunch of 40 and 50-point games over the years, but as a kid, listening on the radio to David Thompson drop 73 on the Pistons.
That's absurd. Devin Booker, speaking of that, has a 70-point game, by the way, which is absurd. Just absurd.
You were at the 100-point Will Chamberlain game, weren't you, Jeff?
Yes. He's the guy who got rid of all the footage.
No.
Yeah.
So now we can't see it.
That's where it went. He's on the beat back then.
You sound like my kids now. Dad, what was it like when the world was black and white?
I'm about to say, well, did you not have black and white TVs growing up?
You handed him the pen and paper so he could write the 100 down.
Did you have a dinosaur when you were a kid?
Oh, man, that's rough. All right, that's a little much. That's a little much.
Oh, they dig. Kids, they dig right in, man.
That's tough.
They dig right in.
Oh, yeah, I get called old man by my kids already. I'm like, boy, I'll show you old man.
I got called Unc because I'm turning 30 this year.
Oh, no.
I've reached Unc status. Oh, my God. I used to be, big bro or this and that. Now it's Unc. I'm like, oh, my. And you're born in the 1900s? That's what my god kids tell me.
I think of Unc, and I think of like Anthony Adams videos or something like that. Oh, no.
I'm aging, man. I'm aging.
I just looked it up. And Devin Booker, who's been in the league since 2016, before this contract extension, through the 23-24 season, doesn't even include 24-25. Through the 23-24 season, what do you think his career earnings are? Mark, you want to take a shot?
$220 million.
Lower.
I'm going to go 127.
$168,238,165, not including last year. And he just got a $145 million 2-year extension. That's a 2-year extension.
Yeah, it says I'm looking at like projected salary and like $53 million next season, 57 after that, 61 in 2027, 2027, 28, 2028, 2029, 69 million, 29, 30 season, $75 million.
Not bad work if you can get it.
Oh my God.
And what's crazy is when he's finally making that money, he'll be like the 10th highest paid player because it'll be a new CBA or
there'll be someone making $100 million.
Yeah,
it's always about timing, right?
Yep.
Always about timing.
I keep thinking about like the quarterback class from this past season, like Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, all those guys when they come due, that's going to be when those rookie deals are done and those guys are all getting paid if they're getting the second extensions. I mean, every other week it's made this guy's the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, and everybody's going to top each other until the next training camp. It's gonna be crazy.
That's how it's gonna go down.
Man, oh man, it's good to have talent like that, right?
I wouldn't know. I'm over here.
For the upcoming 25-26 season, here are your highest paid NBA players. Steph Curry is on the schedule to make $59.6 million. Joel Embiid, $55.2. Nikola Jokic, $55.2. Kevin Durant, 54.7. Giannis, 54.1. Dame, 54.1. Luka, 54.1. As is Butler, Jimmy Butler, Anthony Davis, and Jason Tatum. Half those guys aren't even going to play. Shouldn't even say half, but a couple of those guys aren't even going to play next year.
As long as the check clears.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right?
I do want to pivot for a second. I know we teased it throughout the show, back to the Indiana Fever. And I brought up what Lexi Hull said after their 19-point loss yesterday to the Golden State Valkyries. And, Mark, if you have the audio queued up, here's what Lexi Hull had to say about some of the effort issues, some of the inconsistency. And she framed it in regard to how they played and how well they played in the Commissioner's Cup Championship, which was obviously for a lot of money.
I think, our team, we have a lot of inconsistency. We raised to the occasion when we're playing for 30,000, and then we need to bring that level of focus and that level of energy every single day. It's really hard to win in this league, and I think, we need to focus every game because all of these games matter when September, October comes. So it's really just going to come to us, and we really need to regroup, turn the page, learn from this, and come with a better mindset on Friday.
Pretty honest and open right there. Hey, we're all about it when there's $30,000 on the line, and we seem to have trouble if there's nothing more to play for. Kind of interesting that she would say that.
I thought it was the most candid you usually hear from athletes, or actually, to phrase that better, it's more candid than you usually get from athletes at that level. Usually you get the same old, we just got to work hard, come together. But she was very honest. Hey, this game wasn't worth $30,000 in my pocket. However, it counts towards the standings, which the Commissioner's Cup didn't. So even though they won that game and as great as they played, in the bigger picture of the overall team success, it means nothing. And so that is what I really appreciate about Lexi Hull's sort of candor there. And we'll see if they're able to sort of build on some of that candor and maybe not have to answer for effort issues and things of that nature going forward, because as we keep saying, there isn't this early point in the season anymore. They're almost at the midway point. You're almost to the All-Star break. You want to be playing much better basketball than we saw yesterday and be more consistent. I mean, Mark, you pointed it out. They haven't had a 3-game winning streak this year, and that's not asking for a lot. I mean, that's not asking for a ton here.
For a team that said that they were competing for a championship.
Exactly.
Right.
I get the injuries have happened and things like that, but the bottom line is you cannot have effort issues, and if money is your motivating factor, which I don't want to make it seem like they have had effort issues for every single game, but the inconsistencies, they can't fluctuate based off how much money you're going to make and things like that, because otherwise you're going to be a team that goes home very early come playoff time.
A 3-game winning streak for a team with championship aspirations, that should be a drop in the bucket as far as like season aspirations should be, and they haven't even topped that, and we're halfway through the season already. So
now on the other side of that coin, and I'm not making excuses here, but I'm pointing out they do have a brand new head coach. They have a couple of different players. They had brought in one that didn't really work out and left. Caitlin has been in and out of the lineup. It is possible that some of this is that this group haven't found their season-long groove yet.
Well, time's ticking because they're halfway through the season already. I mean, if there's chemistry
the reason I say this, though, you remember the big three started with the Miami Heat. It took them almost 60% of the season to get on board there. It didn't they weren't just great out of the gate, LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. And we've seen that with other teams that want to be super teams right out of the gate. Sometimes it takes a half a season to put it all together. We've seen this often.
So I believe we have Greg on the line. Mark?
Yes, Greg wants to talk about the Fever's struggle.
Yeah, let's hear from Greg. Let's hear from his perspective, because I feel like I would love to hear a fan give me what they've seen through their eyes. So, Greg, we got you?
Yeah, what's up, guys?
Yeah, it's good to hear from you, man. What's on your mind?
Well, I just look at, obviously, I'll preface by saying this. We're talking about the Indiana Fever, right? So 5 years ago, I don't know if I could tell you when their season was. So that's a good thing, and going with that. I look at it like, is there too many distractions that are going on, right? Like, so last year, obviously, Caitlin comes into the league. She's a rookie. She takes the league by storm. So many great things happen for the association. But this year, they're probably the most popular team on social media. We have the DeWanna Bonner situation. Stephanie White's been out for some personal reasons. it just seems like there's so many distractions that have been around this team. And like you guys mentioned earlier today, target on their back. Now they're kind of, everybody wants to beat the Fever. It doesn't matter. I mean, they've lost to the Sparks twice. They've lost to the Mystics. They've lost to Golden State, which Golden State, I mean, they're decent. They're 500. But then they lose to Dallas the other night. So I don't know if it's just too many distractions that are going on, and that's leading to the chemistry that's not really, molding together. I don't know. But
I think you bring up one great.
There's a lot of distractions.
Yeah, I think one of the great points you bring up too is, even though they're not a team that won a championship, even though they're not, they haven't been one of the top 2-3 teams in the league for a while, they are the team that everybody wants to beat, James, because there's going to be more eyes on those games. There's going to be a big TV audience. There's going to be a full arena. I mean, these are big games for the opponents who, I think everybody wants to say, hey, I can play with Caitlin Clark and beat her. But I think this is the team in the WNBA that other teams really want to beat.
Yeah, and shout out to Greg for the call. I definitely appreciate the insight. I think there is some truth to that because it is a lot to deal with from the attention standpoint, which they had to adjust to a lot more last year. I think they were probably more prepared for it this year than last year with Caitlin Clark going into her second season. And then on top of that, to Greg's point, the injuries, the DeWanna Bonner wanting out situation, all of those things. And then to kind of look at what you said, Jeff, I think just at the end of the day, this is the world you've kind of created for yourself. When you're Caitlin Clark, you're going to get a target on your back. When you're Caitlin Clark's team, you're going to have a target on your back. And whether you're a Caitlin Clark team or not, when you're trying to win a championship, you're going to have a target on your back. So at some point, I'm trying to parse through what's an excuse and what's a legitimate reason for the struggles. I think a legitimate reason would be, hey, we've had injuries. You can't really control that. I mean, no one predicted that Caitlin Clark would miss, I believe, 10 games this early into the season. However, I also think that when you are telling us almost 20 games into the season, oh, we've got effort issues, we got focus issues, we've got discipline issues, that to me is inexcusable. And
is that coaching right there?
It could be coaching, but I also think it's personal effort. And I go back and forth on it. I think that your coach certainly plays a big factor in your culture, but players do as well. I don't think that, to give it a Pacers angle or analogy, I don't think that Rick Carlisle ever has to tell TJ McConnell to play hard. Ever. And so if she's telling you all we have to figure out how to have more effort and get to the 50-50 balls and dive on the floor and do all the little things, I don't know if that's all on Stephanie White. So I think it's a collective, thing where it could be coaching on one hand, not excusing her because I think that, it is a style thing as well because she's had Caitlin Clark play more off the ball this year. Do you go back to her playing on the ball when she's healthy and kind of running the offense how we've seen it in the past where Caitlin Clark's kind of the engine of it? And then number two, like I said, effort and attitude, all those things, that to me might be more internal than coming from the coach.
It's Fan Morning Show on 93.5, 107.5. The Fan, James Boyd, Jeff Rickard, Mark Dykton in here this morning. The other point that Greg made, too, is think about this. 3 years ago, nobody's talking about the Fever. No, very, very little discussion about the Fever and very little going on there. Now you walk outside and you see Caitlin Clark in an ad for the WNBA game about 40 stories high over there on the Marriott, probably maybe the biggest thing they've ever had there. Mark, you and I talked about the fact that we were walking around downtown yesterday, and everywhere you looked, people are walking around with Fever jerseys on and T-shirts, things like that. We know that every time they go play on the road, several teams, because they don't play in the large arenas, move their games to the large arenas. So this is the deal, too. You get all that attention. You get all those eyes on you. You get the great TV ratings. You get, hopefully there's going to be better paychecks down the road for all these women, and it's becoming a legitimate, discussed sport. And part of that deal is when you're 9-10 and you yourself said you had championship expectations, people are going to start asking questions and wondering what's going on.
Absolutely. And I think Caitlin Clark isn't above that criticism. I understand that she's been injured this year, and I'll give her some grace for trying to play through, I believe, even before she sat down that first time with the quad injury. It looks like she was probably hurt before then until they finally told her, and she finally told them, hey, I'm not feeling too hot right now. But eventually, as we do with all athletes, if you're out there, we're not going to make excuses for you. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton played with what we now know was probably
Achilles on the way out.
Yeah, and we didn't make excuses there either. So I think that she has to play better. Even yesterday, I understand she's coming back from the injury, but to have 4 turnovers to 6 assists, that's not going to cut it. In her, again, the turnover numbers this year have kind of been on par with what we saw last year when it was still way too high for me, in my opinion, to still be considered, a very potent offensive talent. Like, she is an awesome player. I've said it here on the airways. I believe that if she stays healthy, she's probably a Hall of Fame player. That's as convicted as I feel. And Caitlin Clark, but you're not above your team. And I can't point the finger at everybody else and say, oh, well, you get a pass because you've been playing through injury. Sophie Cunningham had an ankle thing early in the year, and I'm sure other women on the team are playing through things. So they have to figure it out collectively, because that yesterday will not cut it. And honestly, it was an embarrassing thing to watch.
And it was everybody. It wasn't just Caitlin Clark. Like, everybody struggled a little bit.
The only player who played well was Michaela Timpson to me. And I think that if you're looking for a bright spot, she's shown some promise. I believe she's the all-time leader in women's basketball at Florida State in blocks. She had a couple of nice blocks yesterday, 3 steals, I think 10 points, 6 rebounds. So she brought it, but the rest of the group has to bring it as well. The rookie can't be the only one bringing it in a game like that.
All right, that's what's going on with the Indiana Fever. We'll talk a little bit more about the Colts coming up in just a few minutes. In the meantime, Mark, let's check it down.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, to the game itself yesterday. It was a tough one, 80-61. The Fever started the game very well in the first quarter, led by as many as 9, then only led by 2 at the end of one, and then it really got away. Outscored 20-9 in the second quarter, outscored 23-19 in the third, and only scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. They just could never – they looked like they were stuck in the mud for most of that game.
Yeah, that was some bad hoops to watch, and they'll have a chance to bounce back tomorrow against the Atlanta Dream, who are led by MVP candidate Alicia Gray. So, definitely want to make sure that you tune into that one.
Indiana Pacers are back on the floor today, at least the Summer League version of the Pacers, and that one will start at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock out in the Pacific time zone in Las Vegas there. Everybody wants to see what Johnny Furphy can do. Want to see him, let's be honest, we want to see him kind of dominate Summer League, don't we?
Yeah, second-year players are usually the ones who look the best in these settings, or the veteran players, and so you would like to see Johnny Furphy do his thing out there. And like I said, a lot of promising traits with that guy. 6'8", pretty good-looking jump shot, can jump out of the gym. So if we see more and more of that potential being tapped into, that'll give us something to look forward to as the season approaches, because it feels like the NBA season isn't too far away, the official one either.
Other notables out there, Quentin Jackson is scheduled to play there. Obviously, the second-round draft pick, Tylen Peter, is going to be there. Cam Jones, we just don't quite know because he's dealing with a hamstring injury, right?
Yeah, so if he is out there, though, that is certainly the player I would probably want to see the most from, because it seems like he would have the most chance, outside of Johnny Furphy, who's a second-year player, to get in the rotation for the Pacers.
All right, meanwhile, the Wimbledon semifinals for the men, they will take place tomorrow. Stop me if you've heard these names before. Sinner, Djokovic, Alcaraz, they're all going to be out there. And also Taylor Fritz is going to be taking on Alcaraz tomorrow. It'll be Sinner against Djokovic later on in the morning, and you can probably watch those on TV tomorrow. I always like watching semifinals, quarters, semis, and finals. I like watching the majors.
Yeah, I think tennis
Grand
might be,
Slam
again,
events.
the most taxing individual sport.
Those guys are, I've said this all the time, they might be the best all-around athletes in terms of quickness, power, eye-hand coordination, endurance, just all that stuff.
Yeah, it takes everything to win at that level, especially to win Wimbledon.
Footwork.
So somebody will have their dreams come true very shortly here in the next couple of days.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on that. In the meantime, we got Major League Baseball continuing to make its way through the season. Yesterday, the Reds over the Miami Marlins by a score of 7-2. Nationals beat the Cardinals 8-2. And it was the Minnesota Twins over the Chicago Cubs, 4-2 the final score there. Indianapolis Indians win at home over at Victory Field in an afternoon game yesterday against the Gwinnett Stripers, 3-2 the final score there. They will play again at Victory Field at 7:05 tonight. And if it's a nice, I say this all the time, if it's a nice evening, there is no better way to spend an evening in downtown Indianapolis at an Indians game in the middle of the summer. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it is good stuff.
All right. Anything else you want to throw in before we get going and start talking about Colts in a few minutes here?
No, excited to get into that conversation a bit more. I know we mentioned a bit earlier about the NFL, NFLPA colluding to cover up the collusion of not wanting fully guaranteed contracts in the NFL. So that's something that we can dive into with my buddy Charles McDonald from Yahoo. I know he probably has thoughts on this, as well as Anthony Richardson. And like I said, I believe he still lives in New York, so he saw a lot of Daniel Jones in recent years too. So I'll be excited to, scratch his brain a little bit.
I want to go full circle because I had that list pulled up. Highest paid Pacers players. While we're talking about highest paid players in the league, two guys making exactly the same amount of money. I bet you can guess who those two are.
Yeah, it's going to be Ty and Pascal.
Yep, Ty and Pascal both making 45.5, just a hair above number 28. They're 26 and 27 on the list. Domas Sabonis is 28th, right there, just behind him at 43 million plus. Not bad work if you can get it.
A
again,
win-win
James.
trade, like I said earlier.
It was a big win for the Pacers.
Right, a win-win for those two guys and their bank accounts.
Yes.
I was like, Mark, if you're trying to get ran out of Indianapolis, just let me know, brother, and I'll get you a ticket.
Just interesting, too, right behind Domas is OG Anunoby, Indiana ties right there, too. How about OG? He's making $39.5 million a year. How about that?
Hey, he's
Go
a good
get it,
player.
man.
He deserves it.
Go get it. All right, that's what's happening in the here and the now. We'll talk about the Colts and what could be happening next for them in just a moment as we continue the Fan Morning Show. Mark Dykman over there on the ones and twos. James Boyd, I'm Jeff Rickard. We'll continue in a moment.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Just rolling through summertime here on the Fan Morning Show. James Boyd smiling to himself because for the second time did I hit the wrong button, not the hot mic button. You enjoy that. I love the fact you guys just revel in my tiny mistakes. I love that.
I can't help it sometimes. I'm like, dang, man, like, we want to hear from you, Jeff. You got to hit the mic, brother.
I know who we want to hear from right now is Charles McDonald, who writes about the NFL at Yahoo Sports. He's been kind enough to join us now on the Payless Liquors hotline. See, you don't have to deal with that nonsense this morning, Charles. You can get on, show us how wise you are, and then you can move on with your day. We appreciate that, man.
Wise. I don't know about that, but hopefully I can live up to that. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on, Charles. And we'll start with the topic that will dominate my life for the next few months, at least, if not the next several months, which is the quarterback competition. And I actually watched the video you did with Matt Harmon, and you were talking about the quarterback competition a little bit and how many games you think Anthony Richardson will play this season for the Colts. And I'll start with this. What was your assessment of Daniel Jones and why it didn't work out in New York? And are the Colts a bit naive to think that it could work out here in Indianapolis?
Yeah, I would say they definitely are. I mean, he wasn't very good, and I'm someone like I was there when Daniel was drafted. I was covering the team for newspapers up here before I switched over to Jets beat. So I've seen just about all of his career, and I think there are moments where you can point and say, hey, they didn't do a good enough job building up the offensive line. Letting Saquon Barkley go last year was a mistake. This, that, and third. But at the end of the day, he just didn't produce enough. And they did like try to find moments where. Do you remember that game that the Giants played against Philadelphia a few years ago on prime time where Daniel Jones had like that big run and then tripped and fell like
yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, so like they did find moments like in the offense where you can like get him on the move and use his legs, but ultimately at the end of the day it was just too limited and there wasn't really the big throwing upside maybe that you see sometimes. With Anthony Richardson. So it wasn't consistent enough. And then I think to get your offense to the best point where he can be productive is if you watch some of his best Giants games under Dable over the past few years or the games where they gave teams the biggest problems, they're running like wing tee, like high school stuff. So that's not really a long-term plan for the NFL, but I guess the Colts are in a spot where maybe it's good enough to compete with Anthony Richardson, which is damning within its own, accolades.
Well, speaking of all that, what'd you make of the offseason in general for the Colts? They get Cam Bynum, Trevarius Ward. They draft Tyler Warren. They're taking a shot on Daniel Jones. How did Chris Ballard do?
It feels to me like a lot of Chris Ballard off seasons over the years where, it's not bad, but you're obviously incomplete coming into the season and you're definitely not where you need to be if you want to compete for a Super Bowl. And it just kind of feels like they're just treading water again. Like, I don't think they had a bad off season. They added some really nice pieces. They should be more competitive on defense, but I do think that losing Will Fries over to Minnesota is going to hurt, especially in a season where you're trying to see what the offense has and maximize the opportunity while you're trying to get this last little run out of Anthony Richardson. So, it as an outsider, it looks like a lot of Ballard offseason where you could possibly win the AFC South, but not much more than that.
So, Charles, I do want to pivot back to the quarterback situation just for one more follow-up. And trust me, I'm just going to throw all the questions at you that I'm going to get asked over the next couple of weeks so I can just regurgitate whatever you tell me. But, with Anthony, and I was listening, like I said, to the clip that you had with Matt Harmon on Yahoo, and I encourage you all to check it out, where the question is, how many games will Anthony Richardson start and for the Colts? And you said, hey, he'll start a few of them because it's the Colts. He's competing against Daniel Jones. But, from your bird's eye view, what is it like to maybe see Anthony not tap more into that potential? Because that was why they took a swing on him. He has all the physical gifts. I think in the video you said he's a video game character, and it is kind of unfortunate when those players don't work out. But how do you feel about it when you hear, okay, May 29th, they're shutting him down again because his shoulder is sore?
Well, the problem, I mean, not to to poo-poo on it too much, but I think we have all watched enough NFL over the years in our life to kind of know what that means at this point. I mean, if you're walking into this last season and you haven't been as productive as you need to be, you haven't been as consistent as you need to be, and now you're hurt, like it's a bad way to start what is the most important year of his career. And like, do I think that Anthony Richardson's a better quarterback than Daniel Jones? Yeah, I do. Is he good enough where he could not practice and then come in and beat Daniel Jones if Daniel Jones is available and active for the entire training camp? That I'm less convinced about. So, I don't know. I just look at the whole Anthony Richardson thing as just unfortunate. I know he was raw. You had to wait and give him time to learn how to play, but if you don't stay healthy, it's kind of hard to stay on the field. And then you have what happened last year where you got sat down for Joe Flacco and that back and forth. So it's just a weird spot where you look at him and you're like, man, like there just aren't many guys. Like it's like if you ever heard Bill Parcells talk about planet theory and why some of those guys go so high in the draft, because like there's only so many guys on the planet that are, in Anthony's case, 6'4", 245 pounds, who throw over a mountain and also run like 4.4 speed. So I get why you would take a chance on it. I would take a chance on it every single time. I'd be the most fired GM in the history of the NFL, just chasing Madden products, trying to see if we can get one with superstar X Factor development. But in Anthony's case, that didn't happen, and it sucks. But I don't think it should stop him from maybe trying again. But for his case, like he really needed this healthy offseason because I just don't think he's in a place where he can afford to miss that much time and then still come back and get in this quarterback race, unless it goes to be one of those things where it's one of those teams where every quarterback plays during the season, and then no one ends up happy in January. Yeah.
I was about to say, you're about to have me getting ready for a top 5 pick if that happens.
Riley Leonard snaps anyone? Ready for that?
To the rescue, Riley Leonard to the rescue. Charles McDonald writes about the NFL at Yahoo Sports. He's kind enough to join us on the Payless Liquors hotline this morning. You mentioned Will Fries a moment ago. We also saw Ryan Kelly going to the Vikings. What do you make of the Colts offensive line as it's constructed right now?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I think there's your answer right there.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see, right? Because I think – if you're an optimist, right? The way that I would say is, hey, you just had a former 7th round guard develop into a player that could command, a 5-year, almost $90 million contract on the open market. That's not nothing. That means like something is going right in that department. And even you've seen other guys develop over the years who have a little more pedigree, like Ryan Kelly and Quentin Nelson. So it's I wouldn't give up like hope that one of these guys can come in and potentially be, a solid starter down the line, because they have done the development in the past. But you still got to see it. Like I don't know. I just, and maybe for Ryan Kelly, it was time for him to move on to a new franchise. I think that might be fair for his situation. But I don't know, when you're in a spot like this, where you're trying to figure out what your young quarterback has left, you want to be a team that can run the ball. Why not just maximize the assets that you already have there? Maybe you have to go find a new center, but I thought the way they handled the offensive line was a little bit strange. But like I said, they should get some credit for a little bit benefit of the doubt for guys who developed in the past. So we'll see what happens there. I just was a little scratching my head at the process there a little bit.
So I do have to take a big picture step back, and I know you've probably seen some of this NFLPA and NFL findings where they've suppressed some of the collusion findings about guaranteed contracts in the NFL. So, Charles, what are your initial thoughts on that and how players should feel about their NFLPA, their own people that are supposed to represent them, sort of diminishing their own value when it comes to trying to get more money from owners?
Oh, they should be furious. If this was a cohesive workforce, which we all know it's not, they should be ousting J.C. Treader. They just put it plainly, they should be having him removed from his position as the NFLPA president. If you are, in theory, like if you're someone who's worked in the union, whether it's, I don't know, journalism, manufacturing, blah, 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 this, that, third. How would you feel if you were in a negotiating battle with your employer to try and squeeze out some more benefits to help your family, to help your day-to-day life, and they just skirt all this past in 2 days, and they don't let anyone vote on it, and then there's a secrecy behind like what actually happened in terms of how these deals were made and what the owner's motivations are.
Sounds like
there'd be uprisings. Like it wouldn't be feasible. So where the NFLPA can operate like in this level of secrecy is just the simple fact that like you have in any given year what's 90, whatever 90 times 32 is. So like almost 3,000 NFL players year to year. Now the vast majority of these guys are not going to be in the NFL after their first year, going through a summer camp. And then even more guys are going to get lost 2 or 3 years down the road. So you have this workforce that's ever changing. And when that bottom rung has changed so much, they lose their power. So you get stuck with these guys at the top who are making a whole bunch of money. You go back to, the 2011 CBA where Drew Brees and some of the other quarterbacks, they threw the rookies under the bus to get less practice time. And in exchange for that, they got rookie wage scales, which capped the number 1 overall pick, $60 million down from the year where it was before, and it still hasn't recovered. Then you come back to where we are now, where you have guys at the top who are just ushering in this new, executive director without letting guys vote on it. And then they have the collusion case, which we find out yesterday that ESPN finally reported on, that the NFL and the NFLPA agreed to conceal that basically the arbitrator said that the NFL was colluding against the NFLPA. And a point that Mike Florio made on Pablo Torre's podcast, which was great, is like, if you're the NFLPA, why are you burying the fact that the court said you guys are being colluded against by all 32 NFL owners? All 32. Now you didn't get the ruling that you wanted, but they still said that there's some pretty clear evidence of collusion. So the fact that you would bury that, it doesn't really make sense to me. And this is worse than what, like DeMaurice Smith, who is actually writing a book right now while calling out everyone. Wow, look at the bravery in you, DeMaurice. While he was running the NFLPA, this is so much far beyond than people would say, oh, DeMaurice is in with the NFL, which I think we knew. But what J.C. Tread is doing is like actively selling veterans under the bus, which is something that you don't see in the NFL. And I think, the owners, they only made it more ridiculous when the year after the Deshaun Watson stuff happened, when Lamar Jackson is, he got the transition tag, which legally, by the rules of the NFL, means that any team can negotiate with him. And no one called him one day to just see, like, what would it take for you to come over here, Lamar? And then he won an MVP and then almost won back-to-back MVPs this year after Josh Allen won. So that issue within itself highlighted, like, wow, a 26-year-old MVP quarterback, the first unanimous quarterback of Tom Brady's on the market and no one wants it. So they kind of hurt themselves there. My Atlanta Falcons really put their foot in their mouth by saying Lamar Jackson gets hurt so much right before he wins an MVP, and right before you have to draft Michael Penix because Kirk Cousins isn't good enough, because Marcus Mariota isn't good enough, because Desmond Ridder isn't good enough. I think it's just disgusting, and no union should let themselves be used like that as their employer. So hopefully they can find some new leadership that isn't going to cap out the billionaires every single time they have these negotiations.
Well, thanks for stopping by. Anything else you want to drop off there, James?
No, I was like, tell us how you really feel, Charles. I didn't know we were going to get that sort of rant from you, but I appreciate the passion, brother.
Yeah, anytime. If you ever want some ranting about labor negotiations, I'm your man.
All right, sounds good, man. Well, you take it easy, and I'm sure I'll run into you at some point in the season, man, but safe travels and everything until then, and, stay out of the sun because camp is coming.
Yes, sir. All right, I'll talk soon, brother.
All right. There you go. Charles McDonald, Yahoo Sports. Great stuff right there.
Yeah. I should have known that last one. He probably went a little too long, but I knew that he would get into it and kind of describe what I think a lot of the players are feeling. But getting back to more Colts-related things, Jeff, I thought that, what he said about Anthony Richardson, the Colts had to take a swing on a quarterback. And when I say had, I mean this was a mandate from Jim Irsay. He said, I'm done with the retread quarterbacks. We're going to go get a guy this year. Now, you can look back and say, should they have traded up for Bryce Young? Should they have traded up for C.J. Stroud? They stayed, and they stayed patient, and they took Anthony Richardson. who, I mean,
I'm not ready to give up yet.
In a vacuum, he has all the traits, but it's getting late early, as my family likes to say, for Anthony Richardson, because as much as you say you don't want to give up, Jeff, and I understand that, he physically hasn't been out there, and that's my biggest concern. So I know we got to get to a break, but we can dive a little bit more into that and wrap the show up and get ready for one more show before the weekend.
Yeah, and I also want to touch base again with another way to reconnect yourself with college football. How about that?
Yeah, okay.
It's coming your way next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Jones keeps, gets a block, takes off, and he is gone. Trying to stay upright, and he trips. Absolutely all alone, and he trips.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Heading down the stretch here on a Thursday morning. Hope you're off and running on a great day, and hope things go well for you. If you're jonesing for basketball, 5 o'clock this afternoon, Indiana Pacers taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers in NBA Summer League, and Johnny Furphy will be the center of attention there.
Yes, and, for those of you who are like me, Johnny Furphy, Summer League MVP. Let's do it.
I got it right now. Hey, did either of you guys play the NCAA EA game before it got taken out by some
I
of the
played it growing
NIL?
up.
Yep,
right?
I played the new one last year, too.
Yeah, I know it's back.
Yeah, it's back, and they got another one. And I always like reading the Pulse and The Athletic, your publication every morning, and I think Chris Branch does a great job there. He was talking about how, it's great that it's coming back because he and his friends would stay up drinking energy drinks till 1 o'clock in the morning in high school and college and middle school and stuff like that. And he talks about the latest version right now. He says it's got a similar gameplay to last year's game with noticeable small improvements. Motions are smoothed a little bit. College coaches are now in the game. But I want to focus briefly on the new Road to Glory mode, inspired by Jason Kirk's excellent review earlier this week, because he had a blast with it. 4 things that happened. If you're familiar with the game, you know what I'm talking about here. He said, I made my name Chris Blaze and decided to be a total jerk. I started as a blue chip recruit and immediately tanked myself down to a 2-star. I told Brian Kelly I never wanted to play for LSU anyway, a lie, after he said I wouldn't get an offer. I committed to Tulane, but on signing day, I faked picking the green wave hat, a thing you can actually do on the game, and instead opted for Nebraska. I'm biding my time behind Dylan Raiola, but sad to report the game does not think Nebraska will be good. I plan to transfer 4 times, though. It's a good game. Let's keep moving. He's playing a game like these kids are playing the game right now.
I saw they added Mr. Brightside to it, so like the crowd chants Mr. Brightside. The Pop-Tart from the Pop-Tart Bowl is in there, going down the toaster.
Dublin this year? For real?
Yeah.
And I think that they also have the sunsetting effect. So when you play a certain game in a certain arena, it will be like in real life where it gets darker throughout the game or the sun might shine through, for like the Rose Bowl, for example. So, yeah.
I will not be playing this game, and I'll tell you why. Because if I start playing it, it will start to dominate evenings later on when the kids are doing other things and
it'll cut into your sleep.
Yeah, it will. Because I know myself. I know myself. If I start this, I'll want to complete entire seasons, and then it just will build on top of each other.
We have tickets, Mark, to give away?
Pair of tickets to the Indy 11 against the Rhode Island FC. That is Saturday at Carroll Stadium. 239-1070 if you want to go.
Fast fingers.
Oh, caller number 1. Surprise. I like that right there.
Hey, man, we got a show to run. Hey, snooze, you lose.
We got a Payless Liquors player of the game for the Indiana Fever last night. This one was not hard to find, James. You want to take a shot at it?
KK, Michaela Timpson.
Yeah, she was terrific off the bench last night. 10 points, 6 rebounds. She was 5 of 9 from the floor, and she even had 3 steals and 2 block shots. She was kind of the lone ranger for the Fever in terms of consistency last night.
Yes, I believe she might have been viewed as like the last player to make the Fever roster initially at the beginning of the season, and I think she's going to be a very good player for them, not only this year, but going forward. So a very good pickup out of Florida State.
So we like that. And the Fever will play again tomorrow night against Atlanta, 7:30 p.m. tip time over at the Fieldhouse. And maybe they have a chance to get it going now. They play Atlanta. They play Dallas. Then they play at Connecticut and at New York before they take a break for the All-Star game. And, I immediately said, hey, they could go 3-1. And you immediately said, yeah, they could go 1-3. But this is where the team is right now.
Exactly. So they have to play a lot better brand of basketball, especially against the Atlanta Dream coming up here with MVP candidate Alicia Gray, as well as former number 1 pick Ryan Howard. So that is a good team that has played well against the Fever this season.
Yeah, and so we'll see if they can get it up and running again. In the meantime, what will be on your viewing calendar tonight? You going to check out any of the Summer League?
Yeah, just want to get a quick look at the Pacers because I think that Cam Jones and the rest of the crew are ready to go. Hopefully Cam Jones is ready to go. But other than that, Johnny Furphy time, man. It's the Johnny Furphy summer. How about that?
Yeah, I don't mind that. Now, I really am interested. I kind of feel like Talon Peter is going to be a guy that can develop into a bench player for this team.
We'll see. Certainly, the roster spots are a little bit tough to make with a team that's coming off a finals run. But he is somebody I do want to see.
Well, you got a place right up the road in Noblesville, or maybe you can watch him develop a little bit. Who knows?
I will make it to a Noblesville Boom game, by the way, very soon. Whenever they start playing, I will be there, giving my respects to Slick Leonard.
All right, Jake comes your way at noon today. At 3 o'clock, it'll be JMV. We look forward to talking about Summer League tomorrow. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Have a great day.